He gets angry over little things, like the temperature of the food or how I clean. He criticizes everything I do, leaving me feeling small and trapped. I don't even want to go home, I admit to Grandma, my voice cracking. Now, she says gently, it's getting late, don't you need to cook dinner? Her words feel like a soft nudge, but they still sting. I stand up reluctantly. You'll be okay, she says, just stand your ground and stay true to yourself. Life will get better. One day, you'll have a Christmas so joyful you'll feel like jumping for joy. God is watching. Her words lighten my heart just a little. Is that a prophecy? I ask, turning back to her. Grandma smiles mysteriously. Let's just say I'm an old woman sharing wisdom. On my way home, I try to shake off my doubts. If I work harder, maybe Dan will change, I tell myself, but things only get worse. It became normal for Dan to bark orders at me, make dinner, give me a massage, iron my shirt. He never said a kind word, only criticism. One night, his temper flared up again. Who do you think you are? He snapped. Why, what did I do? I asked, confused and weary. But once again, I was left questioning why this marriage had turned into a constant storm of anger and hurt. You don't even have the decency to greet me when I get home, Dan yelled as soon as he walked in. Who do you think you are, staying out so late? Now I have to heat up my food in the microwave, God darn you. I sighed deeply. I told you I had a co-op meeting tonight. I even left a note on the table. Shut up, that's no excuse for lazy cooking, he snapped. Lazy? What are you talking about? I made the main dish and all the sides, just like always, I replied, trying to stay calm. If it's not freshly cooked, it's cutting corners, he barked back. His reasoning was ridiculous. I should always come first, above anyone or anything. I've been putting up with you. You're my wife, you're supposed to obey me. That's insane, I blurted, shocked by his entitled demands, but he stood tall, puffed up with self-importance, and sneered at me. You have no family, no one else to rely on, you can't survive on your own, you're nothing without me, you should shut up and worship me. If you can't do that, I'll divorce you, he said, smirking like he enjoyed breaking me down. Then he sat down and ordered, now, give me a foot massage. I bit back my frustration, holding myself together as best I could. If I fought back, it would only make things worse, and most importantly, I had nowhere else to go, not in the freezing sleet outside. So, I sat on the floor and gave him the massage, swallowing my pride like I had so many times before. This cycle went on until one day, while grocery shopping, I suddenly collapsed from intense pain. An ambulance rushed me to the hospital. When the doctor explained my condition, I couldn't make sense of it at first. This virus is transmitted through sexual contact, the doctor said gently. Your husband was also tested, and both of you have it. You probably didn't notice, because you had no symptoms. Unfortunately, you'll need surgery, and I'm very sorry to tell you this, but your chances of having children in the future are extremely slim. The words hit me like a freight train, my mind went blank. Dan quickly followed the doctor out of the room, leaving me alone with my thoughts. I can't have a baby, I whispered to myself, over and over, as the weight of it sank in. Slowly, the shock turned into an overwhelming darkness inside me. I needed answers. Forcing myself to stand on unsteady legs, I tried to follow them. Wait, doctor, Dan, I called out, but I froze mid-step when I overheard their conversation. And in that moment, I realized something that would change everything. So, does everyone need to get tested? Exactly, they all need treatment at once, or it'll just keep coming back to you, the doctor explained. Do they even know what the test is for? Dan asked, his voice persistent. Of course they do, the doctor replied, clearly getting annoyed with him. I sat quietly, feeling hopeless. As I listened to their conversation, it became clear that Dan had been seeing at least 3 different women while we were married. I looked at a picture of my mom on the wall and whispered, I need help. I know he's not a good husband now, but maybe he'll change if we have a baby. I tried to hold on to Grandma's words. I would struggle now, but eventually, I'd be happy. I thought they would be my good luck charm, but I was wrong. Dan didn't seem to care about me at all. He was always focused on his own health, going to the hospital for his checkups, while I suffered in silence. I longed for a family of my own, a husband, kids, and a home. Tears streamed down my face as I held the picture of my mom. Mom, I sobbed quietly. Suddenly, Dan appeared. What are you sitting around for? Dinner's not ready, He threw papers on my head as I sat there. "These are divorce papers," he said, his voice cold. "This is your punishment for ignoring me and making a fuss." "You're so depressing," he sneered. "I'm ready to divorce you anytime. You're the one who will suffer, not me. If you don't want that, start doing your duty." "I'm not slacking," I mumbled, too tired to argue anymore. "Oh, there's one more thing, no living expenses for you this month," he added with a smirk. He stepped closer. "I'm giving you a chance to reflect, know your place. If you don't obey me, it's over." Once he finished his rant, he left the room, looking satisfied with himself. Divorce. The word hung in the air, my emotions numbed as my eyes fell on the papers with Dan's signature. "Mom, I've decided," I whispered, wiping away my tears. I looked at her smiling picture. "Please watch over me." For a while, I stayed quiet, living with Dan as usual. He treated me like a servant, taking out his anger on me. I argued sometimes, but mostly, I endured the silence. And one day, as he began another tantrum, I knew it was time to act. "I told you already, I can't eat lukewarm salad, and cold stew? Forget it. How long does it take for you to get it right?" I sighed inside, then decided to follow through with my plan. "If I don't obey, you'll divorce me, right?" "Right. At least you remember that. If you don't want me to leave, you better fix your stupidity." He leaned back, satisfied with himself. "You're a bit slow, aren't you?" "What?" He blinked in surprise at my response. "What did you just say?" "You say the same things over and over. Do you even know any other words? All you ever say is divorce. It's sad, really." "What the heck? Let's get a divorce. I'm fine with it. I'll be a stranger to you, just like you want." His jaw dropped in disbelief. "Are you serious?" I smiled calmly and said, "Goodbye." I took off the apron I had bought when we got married, folded it, and placed it on the table with the house keys on top. I looked at him one last time before picking up my pre-packed suitcase and walking out the door. "What the heck is going on?" His voice chased after me, snapping me out of my thoughts, but I couldn't care less. "Yay, I'm free." I pretended not to hear him and happily walked towards my parents' house, where I had decided to move back in. 1 year later. The divorce was final, but Dan didn't stop contacting me. "You're sorry, aren't you? I'll take you back if you apologize. A wife should." I ignored the constant messages, which were something I never had to deal with when we were married. Eventually, after he kept pushing, I agreed to meet him face to face at his parents' house. "Why have you been ignoring me?" Dan, who was trying to act calm in front of his parents, spoke reasonably. "I've been texting you all this time, but you never replied." "Oh, yeah, I turned off notifications from you." "Why?" "It was too annoying." "I am annoying?" "Yes, you are." His face started turning red as his anger built up. "So, what do you want to talk to me about?" He started raising his voice, but then remembered where we were and quickly muttered an apology, something that had never happened in our marriage. Wow, I thought, he actually knows how to apologize. "What do you need to talk to your ex-wife about?" I asked, curious. "Hold on, why are you acting so strange? Aren't you struggling after the divorce? How are you managing?" He sounded almost concerned, but I couldn't forget how he never even checked on me before, even though he knew where I lived. "I didn't mind getting back together if that's what you want. Doesn't that make you happy?" "Not at all." I almost laughed at his confidence. "It doesn't make me happy, and it wouldn't help me. I make enough money to support myself. Besides, the living expenses you gave me were only $500 a month. It didn't even cover what we needed. You're the one struggling now, without me, right? The money I was covering for you is gone, and I'm much more comfortable being alone now. I don't understand why we'd get back together after I've finally been free," I said, pretending to be confused. Dan got visibly frustrated. "What? You were supposed to be a housewife. I mean, let's not talk about finances," he mumbled, clearly uncomfortable with his parents being there. "Dan, stop acting like a child caught in trouble. Calm down. Don't try to look good now. They know everything about you." "What secrets?" he asked. I motioned for him to be quiet and revealed the truth. "You're wrong about me. I wasn't just a housewife. I told you I lived abroad because of my dad's job. I used the German I learned there to work as a translator. Do you remember those materials on the bookshelves? I didn't care about them," he muttered. "Exactly. Those were materials and manuscripts for translation. You never touched them because you didn't care. Thanks to that, I hid some recording equipment. Wait. Dan froze when I mentioned the word recording. It was his father who presented the evidence, a recording device and files, right in front of him. See, all your secrets, like how you treated her, are out now, his father said. His parents started crying as they watched the recordings and apologized to me. They were ashamed of how their son treated me. Well. Dan stammered, clearly nervous under the pressure. His mother grabbed him and forced him to sit down again. She glanced at me, signaling for me to continue, and I nodded. These are copies of our divorce papers, I said, pointing to parts marked with red circles. You know what these are, right? No way. He whispered, shocked. I showed him the witness signatures on the papers, people he knew very well. Actually, there wasn't enough space for all the witnesses. You had more than 2 girlfriends, didn't you? Wait a second. No more waiting, I interrupted. Before I could continue, a voice full of resentment filled the room. You never told us about the STD, we only had a relationship with you, that means you brought it in from somewhere else, didn't you? I mean, what am I, a fling? Didn't you say we'd get married one day? That's something only a bachelor should say. Oh no, one of his girlfriends added, her voice full of contempt. We watched the video too. You're a villain, not just to us, but to all women. You're public enemy number 1. You're finished. Surrounded by his angry girlfriends, Dan collapsed to the floor. His parents sighed deeply, ashamed of their son. I had hired a private investigator to look into his girlfriends and had secretly contacted them. I also informed my ex-in-laws about everything. The result was this chaos. Your game is up now, Dan. His parents strongly insisted that he face the consequences. All of his girlfriends, and I demanded compensation from him. Dan worked for a company owned by a relative of his mother, so the payments were taken directly from his paycheck. To make sure he couldn't escape, he was kept under strict supervision at his parents' house while facing years of compensation payments. 6 years had passed since everything had changed. Hey, Judy, what's wrong? It was a cold day, with Christmas songs playing everywhere in the city. I stopped in front of a tree ornament that caught my eye. My husband, his breath visible in the chilly air, turned to look at me from a few steps ahead. He smiled softly, his ears red from the cold. The little girl in his arms had rosy cheeks too. I couldn't help but adore them both. Grandma's prediction was actually amazing, I murmured to myself. My current husband, surprisingly, was the brother of one of Dan's ex-girlfriends. After everything, I had stayed in touch with the girlfriends, and it was through them that I met him. He had gently helped me heal from the depression I'd suffered after my painful marriage to Dan. It felt like a strange, almost fateful twist of events. If it hadn't been for everything with Dan, I never would have met my husband. So that's what Grandma meant when she said, "You'll struggle, but you'll be happy." I reflected again, amazed at how true her words had turned out to be. And, against all odds, I had gotten pregnant after we married, something I had been told was highly unlikely. I still remember the Christmas day when I was rushed to the emergency room and the doctor announced that I was pregnant. We were overjoyed, jumping up and down like kids, and the nurse scolded us to calm down. It felt like a true Christmas miracle. This time of year always brought those memories rushing back. I had been hurt deeply by Dan, but now, I was so happy. Mommy. I was brought back from my thoughts as my daughter left my husband's arms and ran to me in her fuzzy coat. Nothing, let's go home and have dinner. It's hot stew for an especially cold day, I've already prepared it. Sounds great. Yay. Laughing, we held hands and walked down the street together. And from somewhere, a familiar Christmas song played in the background.
The moment your child collapses on stage is forever burned into your memory, like a photograph negative that won't fade no matter how many times you blink. I was sitting in the third row, dead center, watching my 12-year-old daughter, Quinn, perform Chopin's Nocturne in E-flat major when her fingers suddenly froze over the keys. My name is Karen, and I've spent the last 15 years of my life making sure nothing bad ever happened to my little girl. But in that moment, as Quinn's face went pale and her body crumpled beside the grand piano, I realized I had failed. "Quinn!" I screamed, already halfway down the aisle before her head hit the stage floor. Other parents were rising from their seats, murmuring in confusion, but I barely registered them. My heels clattered against the wooden steps as I rushed onto the stage. "Give her space!" someone called out, but I pushed past the gathering crowd. Quinn's chest was rising and falling rapidly, her skin clammy to the touch. I knew exactly what this was. She'd missed her medication. But that was impossible. I'd watched her take it myself before the recital. "Mum?" Quinn's voice was barely a whisper. "I don't feel good." "It's okay, baby. I'm here." I reached for her purse, fumbling for the pill case. My hands were shaking so badly I could barely open it. When I did, my blood ran cold. Instead of Quinn's prescribed tablets, there were small, white candies. Sugar pills. "Someone call 911!" I shouted, my voice cracking with panic. "Oh, Karen, don't be so dramatic." My sister Lindsay's voice cut through the chaos like a knife. She stood in the stage wing, arms crossed, wearing that same smirk she'd had since we were kids. "She's probably just nervous." I whirled around. "These aren't her pills. Someone replaced them with candy." "Really?" Lindsay's eyebrows rose in mock surprise. "Well, maybe a little humility would do her good. She's been getting awfully full of herself lately, don't you think?" The world stopped spinning. "What did you say?" "Karen," my mother Sylvia appeared beside Lindsay, already shaking her head. "Stop causing a scene. Quinn is fine. She's just seeking attention, just like you always did." Quinn's breathing was getting worse. I could see the fear in her eyes as she clutched my hand. "My daughter needs emergency medical attention," I said through gritted teeth, pulling out my phone. "Someone tampered with her medication." "Don't you dare call 911, Sylvia hissed. "Think of how it will look. Think of your sister's wedding next month. We don't need this kind of drama right now." I hit the emergency dial button anyway, watching Lindsay's smirk fade slightly. "Yes, hello?" My daughter's collapsed at the Riverside Community Centre. She has a medical condition and someone's tampered with her medication. "Karen!" Sylvia grabbed for my phone, but I stepped away. The paramedics arrived within minutes, though it felt like hours. As they loaded Quinn onto a stretcher, I heard Lindsay whisper to our mother, "She's always been jealous of the attention I get. This is probably just another one of her stunts." I watched them wheel my baby girl toward the ambulance, her small hand still reaching for mine. The stage lights felt too bright, the whispers of the lingering audience too loud. My sister's words echoed in my head. A little humility would do her good. That's when something inside me changed. Maybe it was the way Quinn's fingers had trembled as she grasped my hand, or maybe it was 38 years of swallowing my sister's cruelty while our mother looked the other way. But in that moment, watching the ambulance doors close on my daughter's pale face, I made a decision. "Karen," Sylvia called out as I headed for my car. "Where are you going?" "We need to discuss how to handle this situation." I turned to face them both. My mother in her expensive dress, my sister with her perfectly styled hair, and that damn smirk still playing at the corners of her mouth. "I'm going to the hospital with my daughter," I said calmly, "and then I'm going to make sure you both learn what real humility feels like." "Is that a threat?" Lindsay laughed, but there was uncertainty in her eyes now. I didn't answer. I didn't need to. Instead, I got in my car and followed the ambulance, my hand steady on the steering wheel for the first time since Quinn collapsed. They thought they knew me. The quiet sister, the obedient daughter, the one who always backed down. But they had never seen me as a mother protecting her child. That was the day I decided they would pay, not just for Quinn's sake, but for every time they'd hurt us and walked away smiling. And I knew exactly where to start. The steady beep of Quinn's heart monitor was the only sound in the hospital room as I watched her sleep. She looked so small in that white bed, her dark hair spread across the pillow like spilled ink. The doctor said she'd be okay, but those hours of uncertainty had aged me a decade. My phone buzzed again, the 15th text from my mother in 2 hours. I finally checked it. "Coming home soon? Need help arranging flowers for Lindsay's bridal shower tomorrow." I switched the phone off and dropped it in my purse. That's when I noticed Quinn stirring. "Mum, Her voice was scratchy. "I'm here, baby." I moved closer, brushing hair from her forehead. "How are you feeling?" "Better." She paused, picking at her blanket. "Aunt Lindsay did it, didn't she? She switched my pills." My chest tightened. "What makes you say that?" "I heard her talking to Grandma last week. She said I was showing off with the Chopin piece, that I needed to learn my place." Quinn's eyes met mine. Why does she hate me so much? Before I could answer, my best friend Lara appeared in the doorway, carrying a teddy bear and what looked like legal documents. "Hey, sweetie," she said to Quinn, setting the bear beside her. "Mind if I borrow your mum for a minute?" In the hallway, Lara's smile disappeared. "I brought what you asked for, your father's will and trust documents." "Thanks." I took the folder, remembering that day 6 months ago when Dad's will was read. Lindsay had been so sure she'd get control of the family trust. The look on her face when it went to me instead. I'd never seen her so angry. "Karen," Lara's voice was gentle, "what are you planning?" "I'm going to make sure my sister's perfect wedding never happens. That's a lot of money to mess with." "Are you sure?" "She tried to hurt my daughter Lara on purpose." My voice cracked, and Mum's already trying to sweep it under the rug like she always does. As if on cue, my mother's voice rang out from the elevator bank. "Karen, there you are!" Sylvia strode toward us in her designer suit, perfectly coiffed as always. "Why aren't you answering your phone?" "The florist needs decisions for tomorrow's shower, and Lindsay is beside herself with worry." "Worry?" I laughed. "About what? That she'll face consequences for once?" "Don't be ridiculous." Sylvia waved her hand dismissively. "Quinn is fine. You're being dramatic as usual. Now, about the flowers. My daughter is in the hospital because Lindsay tampered with her medication." "You can't prove that." Sylvia's eyes narrowed. "And I won't have you spreading such vicious lies about your sister. You've always been jealous of her success." "Success?" I stepped closer. "What success? Living off Dad's trust fund while I actually work for a living?" "Ladies," Lara interrupted, "this is a hospital." Sylvia straightened her jacket. "Karen, I expect you at the house in an hour. We need to discuss how to move forward from this unfortunate incident. Lindsay's wedding is in 4 weeks, and I won't let you ruin it with these accusations." She turned on her heel and left, the click of her shoes echoing down the hallway. Lara touched my arm. "What are you thinking?" I opened the folder, scanning the trust documents until I found what I was looking for. Dad wasn't stupid. He put in a moral turpitude clause. If either of us commits acts of serious misconduct, access to the trust can be denied. "And you have proof of what Lindsay did?" I pulled out my phone, opening the security app. The recital hall has cameras everywhere, including backstage where Lindsay admitted what she did. I pressed play, and her voice filled the air. Maybe a little humility would do her good. Lara's eyes widened. "That's pretty damning." "I'm meeting with the trust lawyers tomorrow." I closed the folder. Lindsay's wedding venue, catering, flowers, it's all being paid through the trust. One signature from me, and it all stops. Your mother will lose her mind. Good. I looked through the window at Quinn, who was already dozing again. Maybe it's time they both learned what real consequences feel like. "What about family peace?" "Peace?" I turned to Lara. "There's never been peace. There's just been me staying quiet while they hurt anyone they want. But not anymore." I clutched the folder tighter. "Not my daughter. Never my daughter." Lara nodded slowly. "Need help with the paperwork?" "Actually," I managed a small smile, "I need help with something bigger. How much do you know about wedding planning?" "Enough to know how to unplan one." We shared a look, and for the first time since Quinn collapsed, I felt steady. Lindsay wanted to teach my daughter about humility? Fine. But first, she'd learn about karma. The trust lawyer's office was exactly what you'd expect, all mahogany and leather, with a view of downtown that probably cost more than my house. I spread the documents across Mr. Patterson's desk while Lara took notes on her tablet. So, let me get this straight, Patterson said, adjusting his glasses. Your sister has already committed to over $150,000 in wedding expenses through the trust. I nodded, pulling up the transaction history on my phone. Venue, deposit, catering, flowers, designer dress, all of it scheduled to clear next week. And you have video evidence of her deliberately endangering your daughter. Plus, medical records and witness statements. I slid the USB drive across his desk. Everything's there. Patterson plugged in the drive and watched the footage, his expression growing darker. When Lindsay's voice came through, maybe a little humility would do her good, he actually winced. Well, he said, removing his glasses, the moral turpitude clause is quite clear. Your father was very specific about protecting the trust from any beneficiary who demonstrated malicious intent or criminal behaviour. So, I can stop the payments. You can do more than that. He tapped the original trust document. You can freeze her access entirely, permanently. My phone buzzed. Another text from Lindsay. Where are you? Vendor needs final payment today. I ignored it. How quickly can we make this happen? I can file the paperwork within the hour. Patterson began typing. But you should know. This will cause quite a stir. Family trusts are meant to protect family, I finished. That's exactly what I'm doing. Back in the parking lot, Lara grabbed my arm. Your phone's blowing up. Sure enough, there were 20 new messages. Most from Lindsay, growing increasingly panicked. Karen, payment didn't go through. Venue manager threatening to cancel. Answer your phone. Then one from my mother. Whatever you're doing, stop it immediately. You're embarrassing the family. It's starting, Lara said quietly. Good. I started my car. Want to grab coffee? I have a feeling we'll need it. At the cafe across street, we hadn't even gotten our drinks when my phone rang. Lindsay's fiancé, Caden. Karen, what's going on? The wedding planner says all the payments are bouncing. Really? I kept my voice neutral. How strange. Lindsay's hysterical. Says you're doing this on purpose. Has she told you about Quinn's recital? About what happened to my daughter? A pause. She said Quinn had a panic attack or something. Ask her about the sugar pills, Caden. Ask her why my 12-year-old ended up in the hospital. Another pause, longer this time. What sugar pills? Check your email in about 5 minutes. You might want to sit down first. I hung up and nodded to Lara, who pressed send on her tablet. The security footage, medical reports, and trust documents were on their way to Caden's inbox. Think he'll actually watch it? Lara asked. He will when the venue cancels tomorrow. My phone buzzed again. My mother. This time I answered. What do you think you're doing? Sylvia's voice was sharp enough to cut glass. Protecting my daughter. By ruining your sister's wedding? This is childish, Karen. I raised you better than this. Did you? I stirred my coffee. Because I remember you raising Lindsay to think she could do whatever she wanted without consequences. How's that working out? If you don't fix this immediately, you'll what? Take away my inheritance? Cut me out of the will? Dad already made sure you couldn't touch this trust. That's why he left it to me. Your father would be ashamed of you. No, I said quietly. He'd be ashamed of you. For letting Lindsay hurt Quinn. For defending her instead of protecting your granddaughter. I'm coming over, she snapped. We need to discuss this face to face. I'm not home. And even if I was, there's nothing to discuss. The papers are filed, the trust is frozen. Lindsay's perfect wedding is over. I hung up as another text came through. From Caden. Just watch the video. We need to talk. All of us. Lara leaned forward. Ready for phase 2? I pulled out the second set of documents. Bank statements showing suspicious transfers from the trust to my mother's personal account, labelled as maintenance expenses. Mum's been skimming from the trust for years, I said. Time to freeze her access too. That means she'll lose the house, Lara reminded me. Your childhood home. I thought about Quinn in that hospital bed. About years of watching Lindsay hurt people while our mother looked the other way. About Dad's signature on the trust documents, giving me control because he knew this day would come. Good, I said, reaching for my phone. Time to call Patterson again. The cafe door chimed and Lindsay burst in, mascara running down her face. What have you done? I took a slow sip of coffee. I taught you about humility. Lindsay slammed her hands on our cafe table, making the coffee cups rattle. Fix this, now. I can't, I said calmly. The trust is frozen pending investigation of criminal misconduct. Criminal? She laughed hysterically. It was a joke. A harmless prank. A prank? I stood up slowly. Quinn could have died. Oh, please. Lindsay rolled her eyes. You're so dramatic. She was fine. She was in the hospital. For one night. Meanwhile, you're destroying my entire wedding. Her voice cracked. The venue just cancelled. Do you know how embarrassing that is? Almost as embarrassing as watching your daughter collapse on stage. Lara touched my arm. Maybe we should continue this somewhere more private. Too late. Other customers were already staring, phones out, recording. Perfect. You've always been jealous, Lindsay hissed. Always trying to make everything about you. Even Dad's death. You somehow manipulated him into giving you control of the trust. I never asked for the trust, I said. Dad gave it to me because he knew you couldn't be trusted with it. Ladies? A cafe employee approached nervously. I'm going to have to ask you to... It's fine, I said, gathering my things. We're leaving. Outside, Caden was waiting by his car. His face was stone cold. Lindsay, we need to talk. Not now, honey. She tried to touch his arm, but he stepped back. Yes, now. About the video Karen sent me. About what really happened at Quinn's recital. Lindsay's face went white. What video? The security footage. He pulled out his phone. Where you admitted to switching her medication. Where you said she needed to learn humility. That's not... I didn't... Lindsay spun toward me. You recorded me? The venue recorded you, I corrected. I just requested the footage. You bitch! She lunged at me, but Caden caught her arm. Stop it! He snapped. Do you realise what you did? You could have killed your niece. I would never. But you did, I cut in. And now everyone knows. The venue knows, the caterers know, the florist knows. Want to guess why they're all cancelling? Lindsay's phone buzzed. She looked at it and let out a small sob. The dress shop just cancelled my final fitting. They're refunding the deposit. Karen. My mother's voice made us all turn. She stood there in her Chanel suit, practically vibrating with rage. This ends now. Whatever game you're playing. It's not a game. I handed Caden another envelope. These are bank records showing unauthorised transfers from the trust. Mum's been stealing money for years. Sylvia's face went pale. How dare you? Those were authorised maintenance expenses. For your spa trips, your shopping sprees, your secret apartment in the city. I shook my head. Dad's will was very specific about what qualified as maintenance. Your lifestyle doesn't. What apartment? Lindsay asked sharply. Sylvia shot me a look that could kill. This is ridiculous. I'm your mother. And I'm Quinn's mother. I stepped closer. You chose to protect Lindsay after she hurt my daughter. Now you can both face the consequences." "Consequences?" Sylvia laughed bitterly. "Like what? Like eviction?" I pulled out one final document. "The house is part of the trust. With your access frozen, you have 30 days to vacate." The colour drained from her face. "You wouldn't?" "Watch me." Caden cleared his throat. I think we need to postpone the wedding." "What?" Lindsay whirled around. "No, we can't. We have to." He wouldn't meet her eyes. "I can't marry someone who would deliberately hurt a child." "I didn't," Lindsay started crying. "Karen, please, you have to fix this. I'll apologise to Quinn. I'll do anything." "It's too late." I checked my watch. "The trust board meets in an hour to review the evidence. After that, neither of you will ever see a penny from Dad's money again." "You'll regret this," Sylvia said quietly. "Family is forever, Karen." "No," I replied, getting into my car. "Family is a choice, and you both made yours when you chose to hurt Quinn." As I drove away, I watched in my rearview mirror. Lindsay crying on the sidewalk, Caden walking to his car alone, my mother standing straight-backed and proud even as her world crumbled. My phone buzzed. A text from Quinn. "When are you coming back to the hospital?" I smiled, making a U-turn. There was only one family member who mattered now, and she was waiting for me. Behind me, I could hear Lindsay's screams echoing across the parking lot. "You've ruined everything." "No," I thought. "I just showed you what real humility feels like." The attic of my childhood home smelled exactly the same, like old books and broken promises. I hadn't planned on coming here, but Lara insisted we needed to check for documents before my mother's eviction. "Look at this," Lara called from behind a stack of boxes. "Letters from your dad?" "Mum keeps everything," I said, but then froze when Lara held them up. They were addressed to me. "These were never opened," Lara said quietly. My hands shook as I broke the first seal. The letter was dated just weeks before Dad died. "My dearest Karen, if you're reading this, I've finally found the courage to tell you the truth. I've watched for years as your mother and sister hurt you, and my silence makes me complicit. I'm leaving you the trust not because you're more responsible, though you are, but because you're the only one who will protect what's right. I'm sorry I couldn't stop them from hurting you, but I can give you the power to stop them from hurting Quinn." "Karen?" Lara's voice seemed far away. "You okay?" I wiped my eyes. "He knew. All this time he knew what they were like." A floorboard creaked behind us. "What are you doing up here?" My mother stood in the attic doorway, her face tight with anger. I held up the letters. "When were you going to give these to me?" "Those are private. They're addressed to me," my voice cracked. "Dad wrote them for me, and you hid them." "To protect you," she snapped. "Your father was confused near the end. He said things he didn't mean, like the truth." I opened another letter. "Like how you've been manipulating both your daughters for decades. Get out of my house. It's not your house anymore." I stood up. "The trust board made their decision an hour ago. You and Lindsay are both permanently cut off." Her face went blank. "You're bluffing." "Check your bank account." She pulled out her phone, hands trembling as she typed. The colour drained from her face. "What have you done?" "What Dad should have done years ago." I gathered the letters. "Stopped you." "Mum?" Lindsay appeared behind her, eyes red from crying. "Caden's calling off the wedding. He won't even talk to me." "Fix this," my mother demanded. "Now." "No." "Then I'll tell everyone what you're really like," Lindsay threatened. "How you've always been jealous, always wanted what I had." "Go ahead." I pulled out my phone. "But first, explain this." I played the security footage again, this time with enhanced audio. Lindsay's voice filled the attic. A little humility would do her good. She's too perfect, just like her mother. Turn that off. Lindsay lunged for my phone, but Lara stepped between us. It's already online, I said calmly, along with the hospital records and police report. Police report. My mother's voice shook. Tampering with medication is a felony. I moved toward the stairs. The detective wants to speak with you both tomorrow. You'd send your own sister to jail? Lindsay whispered. You could have killed my daughter. She's fine. Because we got lucky, I shouted, making them both jump. Because the ambulance came quickly. Because the doctors knew what to do. But you didn't know that when you switched her pills, did you? You just wanted to hurt her, to hurt me. Silence filled the attic. Dust motes danced in the afternoon light, streaming through the window. Your father would be ashamed, my mother said finally. I held up his letters. Actually, I think he'd be proud. He left me these letters and the trust for exactly this moment when someone needed to protect this family from you two. My phone buzzed. A text from Quinn's nurse. She's asking for you. I have to go, I said, heading down the stairs. The eviction notice gives you 30 days. I suggest you start packing. Karen, wait. Lindsay's voice was small. Please. I'll apologise to Quinn. I'll do anything. I turned back one last time. You know what's funny? All those years, you thought Quinn needed a lesson in humility, but it was you who needed to learn what it feels like to lose everything. Outside, Lara let out a long breath. That was intense. It's not over, I said, getting into my car. They'll try something else. They always do. What makes you so sure? I held up Dad's letters. Because he warned me they would, and this time, I'll be ready. As we drove away, I watched my mother and sister in the rearview mirror, standing in the doorway of the house they'd soon lose. They looked small somehow, diminished without their power and pride. My phone buzzed again. Another text, this time from an unknown number. You've made a terrible mistake. Blood is thicker than water. I showed it to Lara. See? Already starting. What are you going to do? I smiled grimly. Exactly what Dad would have wanted. Protect what's right. The video arrived in my inbox at 3 a.m, sent anonymously, but I knew it had to be from one of Caden's event staff. The footage showed my mother and sister in what looked like a hotel conference room, their voices rising above the sound of moving furniture. This is all your fault, Sylvia screamed at Lindsay. You couldn't leave well enough alone, could you? Had to teach Quinn a lesson. Now look what's happened. I watched it 3 times before forwarding it to Patterson, my trust lawyer. His response came minutes later. This is exactly what we needed. Quinn was being discharged today, and I was gathering her things when Caden appeared in the doorway of her hospital room. Can we talk? He asked quietly. Quinn looked between us. Mum, it's okay. I need to pack anyway. In the hallway, Caden ran a hand through his dishevelled hair. I called off the wedding permanently. I heard, Lindsay, she's not who I thought she was. He pulled out his phone. Look at these texts she's been sending me. The messages were unhinged. Threats, guilt trips, promises to change. Classic Lindsay. She'll never change, I said. Neither will my mother. I know that now. He hesitated. There's something else. They're planning some kind of replacement wedding party. Private event, close friends only. They're trying to save face. I laughed. With what money? That's just it. They're asking guests to help fund it, calling it a love offering or something. My phone buzzed. Another anonymous text. Your mother is trying to file for emergency guardianship of Quinn. Claims you're mentally unstable. Wow, I showed Caden the message. They really don't give up. Karen, Lindsay's voice echoed down the hospital corridor. She was walking toward us wearing oversized sunglasses and carrying what looked like a gift bag. "You need to leave," Caden said firmly. "I'm here to apologize to my niece." She tried to push past us into Quinn's room. I blocked the doorway. "No, you can't keep me from her forever." Lindsay's voice cracked. "I made a mistake. I want to make it right." "A mistake?" I stepped closer. "You deliberately tampered with life-saving medication. That's not a mistake. That's a crime. The police already question me. They can't prove anything." "No." I pulled out my phone. "What about this new video? The one where you and Mom are screaming about how you had to teach Quinn a lesson." Her face went white. "What video?" "The one that's being added to the police report right now." "You're lying." "Mom?" Quinn called from inside the room. "Can we go home now?" Lindsay tried one last time to look past me. "Quinn, honey, I brought you a present. Stay away from my daughter." My voice was ice. "Or the next call I make won't be to the trust lawyers. It'll be to the district attorney." She backed away slowly, then turned and ran toward the elevator. Caden watched her go with a mixture of pity and disgust. "I can't believe I almost married her," he said quietly. Back in Quinn's room, she was sitting on the edge of her bed, fully dressed and ready to go. "Was that Aunt Lindsay?" "Yes, but she's gone now." "Good." Quinn picked up her backpack. "I don't want to see her anyway." My phone buzzed again, this time from Patterson. "Emergency hearing tomorrow regarding your mother's guardianship petition. Don't worry, we have everything we need to shut it down." "What's wrong?" Quinn asked, seeing my expression. "Nothing, baby." I helped her with her jacket. "Just more drama from Grandma and Aunt Lindsay." "They're not going to stop, are they?" "No." I squeezed her hand. "But they can't hurt us anymore." As if on cue, my mother's voice carried from the nurse's station. "I'm her grandmother. I have a right to see her." "Time to go," I said, guiding Quinn toward the back exit. In the parking lot, Lara was waiting with her car running. "Need a getaway driver?" Quinn managed a small laugh as we climbed in. Through the rear window, I could see my mother bursting out of the hospital entrance, looking around wildly. "Where are we going?" Quinn asked. "Home," I said. "And then, tomorrow, we're going to make sure they never try something like this again." "How?" I thought about the video, the police report, Dad's letters, and the trust documents. "By showing everyone exactly who they really are." Lara pulled onto the highway just as my mother spotted our car. The last thing I saw in the mirror was her standing in the middle of the parking lot, screaming something we couldn't hear. "Mom!" Quinn's voice was small. "Are we going to be okay?" I reached back and took her hand. "We already are, baby. We already are." My phone buzzed one final time. A message from Patterson. "Everything's ready for tomorrow. They won't know what hit them." Good, I thought, because this time the lesson in humility would be permanent. The replacement wedding party was in full swing when I walked into the country club's ballroom. Lindsay had managed to gather about 50 people, mostly her friends who didn't know the full story yet. My mother stood near the champagne fountain, pretending everything was fine. I wasn't invited, of course, but I didn't need an invitation anymore. "Oh God," Lindsay whispered when she spotted me. "Security! Security!" "They won't help you," I said calmly, setting my briefcase on the nearest table. "I'm still a member here. Dad made sure of that." "Get out!" My mother hurried over, her face flushed. "Haven't you done enough damage?" "Actually," I pulled out a stack of folders, "I'm just getting started." Caden emerged from the crowd. "What's going on?" "Karen's trying to ruin everything again," Lindsay sobbed. "On my special day." "Special day?" I laughed. "You mean your fake wedding party? The one you're funding with donated money because you lost access to the trust?" The room got quieter. Guests were starting to pay attention. "You want to know why she lost access?" I raised my voice slightly. because she tampered with my daughter's medication, put her in the hospital, and my mother helped cover it up. That's a lie, Sylvia snapped. Really? I opened my briefcase. I have copies for everyone. Security footage, hospital records, police reports, and the Trust Board's official findings. Oh, and let's not forget Dad's letters. What letters? Someone asked. I felt, the ones my mother hid from me. The ones where Dad explained why he left me in charge of the trust, because he knew exactly what kind of people they were. Lindsay lunged for the briefcase, but Caden caught her arm. Don't, he said quietly. It's over. I also have something else, I continued, pulling out one final document. The results of the Morgan Stanley audit, showing how my mother has been embezzling from the trust for years. The whispers grew louder. People were backing away from my mother and sister. You're just jealous, Lindsay screamed. You've always been jealous of me. Jealous? I stepped closer. Of what? Your fake life? Your lies? The way you hurt people and expect everyone to pretend it's okay? I'm your sister. No, I said quietly. You're just someone who shares my DNA. And now everyone knows exactly who you are. My mother tried one last time. Your father would be ashamed. Don't you dare talk about Dad. I pulled out his last letter. Want me to read what he really thought of you both? He wrote it all down. Please, Lindsay whispered, don't do this. Like you didn't do this to Quinn? Like you didn't try to humiliate my daughter? The room was silent now. Every eye was on us. You know what's funny? I looked around at the gathered crowd. All these people donated money to help you save face. Did you tell them where the trust money really went? Did you tell them about Quinn? I think, Caden said loudly, this party is over. People began gathering their things, murmuring amongst themselves. Someone unplugged the music. The champagne fountain gurgled to a stop. You've ruined everything, my mother hissed. No, I corrected her. You did that yourselves. I just made sure everyone knew about it. I left the folders on the table and walked out, leaving them standing in their empty party room. As I reached my car, I could hear Lindsay's sobs echoing across the parking lot. My phone buzzed, a text from Quinn. How did it go? It's done, I typed back. Want to go play some piano? At the hospital conservatory? Yeah. I heard there's a little girl in the cancer ward who loves music. Thought maybe you could play for her. On my way. I started the car, glancing back at the country club one last time. Through the windows, I could see people hurrying to their cars, leaving my mother and sister alone in their ruined celebration. My phone buzzed again. Lara this time. Did you do it? Yes, I replied. And you know what? It didn't even feel like revenge. It felt like justice. Later that evening, I sat in the hospital conservatory, watching Quinn play Chopin for a small girl in a wheelchair. The child's face lit up with every note, and Quinn was smiling. Really smiling, for the first time since the recital. My phone buzzed one final time. A message from an unknown number. You'll regret this. Family is forever. I deleted it without responding. They were wrong. Family isn't forever. Family is a choice. And sometimes the best choice is to walk away and build something better. Quinn hit the final notes of the piece, and the little girl clapped with delight. This, I thought, is what really matters. Not revenge, not punishment, just love, music, and the truth finally set free. The autumn wind scattered leaves across my father's headstone as Quinn and I approached with fresh flowers. She carried a single red-tipped rose, his favourite, and something else clutched in her small hand. Can I do it, Mom? I nodded, watching as she placed the rose against the granite, then carefully set a single sugar candy beside it. Our private joke, our reminder of how everything had changed. I played Chopin again yesterday, Quinn told the headstone, The whole piece this time, no interruptions. My phone buzzed. Another letter from my mother, forwarded by her attorney. I deleted it without reading, just like all the others. The last one I'd opened had been the same old story. Half apologies wrapped in guilt and manipulation. "Mum?" Quinn pointed toward the cemetery entrance. "Isn't that Aunt Lindsay's fiancé? I mean, ex-fiancé?" Caden was walking toward us, hands in his pockets against the chill. "I heard Lindsay moved away," he said when he reached us. "Some small town out west. Changed her name." "I know." I'd received the private investigator's report last week. She was working as a waitress, drowning in debt now that the trust money was gone forever. "How did you find us here?" "Your friend Lara told me. I wanted you to know. I testified at the disciplinary hearing about what Lindsay did to Quinn." Quinn squeezed my hand. "The medical board had suspended our family doctor for covering up the medication tampering at my mother's request. One more consequence neither of them had seen coming." "Thank you," I said quietly. "Is it true about your mum? That she lost the house?" "The trust sold it last week." I smiled slightly. "To a lovely family with 3 kids who can't wait to renovate it." "And the money?" "Going to children's hospitals. Dad would have liked that." Quinn tugged my sleeve. "Can I go play by the oak tree? Just for a minute?" I watched her skip away, her dark hair catching the sunlight. She was stronger now, more confident. The nightmares about the recital had finally stopped. "She's resilient," Caden observed. "She is." I turned back to my father's grave. "More than any of us knew." "Listen," Caden shifted uncomfortably. "There's something else. Your mother, she's been calling my office, trying to get me to help her appeal the trust decision. Says she's living in some tiny apartment now." "Good. You really don't feel bad about any of it?" I thought about Quinn collapsed on that stage, about years of watching Lindsay hurt people while our mother enabled her, about Dad's letters hidden away while I blamed myself for everything. "No," I said finally. "I don't feel bad. They chose cruelty over kindness, pride over love, every single time." "Mom!" Quinn called from the oak tree. "Look what I found." She came running back with something in her hands, a perfect red maple leaf, the same colour as the tip of the rose on Dad's grave. "Can we press it in your journal, like Grandpa taught us?" My throat tightened. "Of course we can." Caden cleared his throat. "I should go. I wanted you to know you did the right thing. All of it." After he left, Quinn and I stood quietly by Dad's grave. The wind picked up, sending more leaves dancing around us. "Do you miss them?" Quinn asked suddenly. "Grandma and Aunt Lindsay?" "I miss who I wanted them to be," I answered honestly, "but not who they really were." "Me too." She placed the maple leaf carefully next to the sugar candy. "But I'm glad we have each other." My phone buzzed one last time. A message from Lara. "Hospital board approved the new children's wing. The trust money's doing good things." I showed Quinn the text, watching her face light up. "Want to go play piano for the kids in the cancer ward again?" "Yes," she practically bounced with excitement. "I learned a new piece just for them." As we walked back to the car, I glanced over my shoulder at Dad's grave. The red-tipped rose stood bright against the grey stone, the sugar candy and maple leaf beside it like small offerings to memory. They say revenge is sweet, but this wasn't about revenge anymore. It was about justice, about protecting what mattered, about choosing love over obligation. Dad had known that when he left me the trust. He'd known exactly what would happen one day. "Ready?" Quinn called from the car. "Ready," I answered, turning away from the past and towards something better. Something real. They say family is forever, but they're wrong. Family is a choice. And sometimes the best choice is to let go of the family you were born with. and build the one you deserve. Quinn was already humming her new piece as we drove away, and I smiled. This was our forever now, and it was better than anything revenge could have given us.
"Get out of my house!" The words came from my father's mouth, but they were Marlene's victory. I stood in our family home's marble foyer, the same spot where I'd taken my first steps, while my stepmother's perfectly manicured hand rested possessively on my father's shoulder. My name is Anne, and this was the moment I'd been preparing for over the last 6 months. I didn't cry. I didn't beg. Instead, I smiled, which made Marlene's smug expression falter for just a second. "You heard your father," she said, her voice dripping with false concern. "This is what's best for everyone." I turned to my father, Everett, the man who'd once sworn on my mother's deathbed that he'd always protect me. "Dad, is this really what you want?" He wouldn't meet my eyes. "Marlene's right. Your attitude, your constant questioning of our decisions regarding the company, it's creating a toxic environment." I laughed then, a sharp, bitter sound that echoed through the foyer. "My attitude? You mean my questions about the unauthorized withdrawals? Or my concerns about the new consultants Marlene's been hiring without board approval?" "That's enough!" Marlene stepped forward, her designer heels clicking against the marble. "Your paranoid accusations are exactly why this needs to happen. Your father and I are trying to modernize the business, and you're fighting us at every turn." I glanced at the security camera in the corner, the one Marlene didn't know was already feeding to my private server. "You're right. I should go pack." My father finally looked at me, confusion flickering across his face. He'd expected tears, pleading, maybe even anger. Instead, he got calm acceptance, and it unsettled him. Good. I climbed the stairs to my room, where 3 suitcases were already packed. As I pulled them out from under my bed, my phone buzzed. A text from my Aunt Virginia. "Everything in place?" "Executing now," I typed back. Downstairs, I could hear Marlene's voice, probably already planning to convert my room into her private yoga studio. She'd been pushing for this since she married my father 2 years ago, slowly poisoning him against me, his own daughter. The daughter who'd worked beside him since I was 16, who'd helped build Fuller Enterprises into what it was today. My brother Caleb appeared in my doorway, his face pale. "Anne, I tried to talk to Dad, but—" "I know," I cut him off, wheeling my suitcases into the hall. "Don't worry about it. Just keep your eyes open, okay?" He nodded, helping me with one of the bags. As we descended the stairs, Marlene was already on her phone, probably calling her friend Krista to celebrate their victory. "I've called you a car," my father said stiffly, still not meeting my eyes. "No need." I pulled out my keys. "I can drive myself." Marlene's perfectly plucked eyebrows rose. "You're taking the company car?" "Actually, it's my car. Check the registration." I smiled again, enjoying the flicker of uncertainty in her eyes. "I've been making arrangements for a while now. You should probably do the same." "Is that a threat?" Marlene stepped closer, dropping her voice. "Because if you think you can intimidate me—" "Not at all," I replied, loud enough for everyone to hear. "Just some friendly advice. You know, like the kind you gave my father about changing the company's banking passwords last week." My father's head snapped up. "How did you—" "Goodbye, Dad." I cut him off, walking to the door. "You should really check those offshore accounts Marlene set up, the ones she thinks nobody knows about." I turned to Marlene, whose face had lost some of its color. "I'd start with the Cayman Islands if I were you." The door closed behind me with a satisfying thud. In my rearview mirror, I could see them arguing through the front window, Marlene's hands gesturing wildly. My phone buzzed again, Virginia confirming that the first set of documents had been filed with the board of directors. I pulled out of the driveway of my childhood home, but I wasn't leaving in defeat. This wasn't an ending. It was exactly the beginning I'd planned for. Marlene thought she'd won, thought she'd finally pushed me out of the way. She had no idea that I'd been recording every conversation, tracking every suspicious transaction, and building a case that would make her wish she'd never heard the name Fuller. My aunt was waiting at her house with a glass of wine and the next phase of our plan. As I drove, I could almost hear the ticking of the time bomb I'd just activated. Marlene had given my father an ultimatum, forcing him to choose between us. But she'd forgotten one crucial detail. I was my father's daughter, and I'd learned everything I knew about business from him, including how to plan for war. Virginia's home office looked like a war room. Documents covered every surface, sticky notes created a rainbow across her walls, and her laptop displayed a complex timeline of Marlene's activities over the past 2 years. "They changed the will today," Virginia said, handing me a glass of wine. "My contact at the firm called an hour ago." I took a long sip. Faster than we expected. "She's not wasting any time." Virginia pulled up an email. "But neither are we. Christian sent over the latest financial records. Look at this transaction from last Tuesday." I leaned in, scanning the numbers. $500,000 to a consulting firm I've never heard of? Because it didn't exist until 3 weeks ago. Virginia smiled. "Registered to Krista Robertson." I set down my wine glass. "Got you, you greedy little—" My phone buzzed. Caleb's face appeared on the screen. I put it on speaker. "Anne?" His voice was hushed. "Marlene's going through your office right now. She's looking for something specific. Keeps asking Dad about a blue folder." I exchanged looks with Virginia. "The merger documents?" "Probably. She's getting frustrated. Dad's in his study, drinking." "Take pictures of everything she touches," I instructed. "And Caleb? Thank you." After hanging up, I pulled out my own laptop. "Christian's been feeding me information for months. Watch this." I pulled up a series of emails between Marlene and Krista, each one carefully archived and authenticated. They've been planning this for over a year. The consulting firm is just their latest scheme. Virginia read through the emails, her lawyer's mind cataloging every damning detail. "This is good, but we need more. The board won't act without concrete proof of fraud." "Already ahead of you." I opened another folder. "Remember when Marlene insisted on upgrading the office security system? She installed cameras everywhere, except she doesn't know I have access to all of them." The video footage showed Marlene in the company's financial office after hours, accessing files she shouldn't have been able to touch. Another showed her meeting with Krista in the parking garage, exchanging documents. "There's more," I said, pulling out a small recorder. "Every conversation in her office for the past 3 months." Virginia's eyes widened. "Anne, some of this might not be admissible." "In court, maybe, but in the court of public opinion, in front of the board, it's devastating." My phone buzzed again. Pearl this time. "Anne, you need to see this." She sent a link to the company's internal messaging system. Marlene had just announced my voluntary departure from the company, citing personal issues that required my immediate attention. "Perfect timing," I said, forwarding the message to Virginia. "Now we can move on phase 2. Virginia pulled up another document. "The trust fund your mother set up for you. Marlene doesn't know about it because it's under your mother's maiden name. If we activate it now—" A loud knock at the front door interrupted us. Virginia checked her security camera feed. "It's your father!" I stood up, straightening my spine. "Let him in." Everett burst into the office, his face red with anger. "What did you do? The board just called an emergency meeting for tomorrow morning." "I didn't do anything," I said calmly. "Yet." "Don't play games with me, Anne. Marlene said—" "Marlene said what?" I cut him off. "That I'm unstable? Paranoid? Or did she tell you about the money she's been funneling through fake consulting firms? He faltered. What are you talking about? I handed him the folder of evidence. Your wife has been stealing from the company, Dad, and you've been too love-blind to see it. He flipped through the pages, his hands shaking. This can't be right. It is. Virginia stepped forward. And there's more, much more. My father sank into a chair, the folder hanging limply from his hands. Why didn't you come to me with this? Would you have believed me? I asked quietly. You haven't believed anything I've said about her for 2 years. His phone rang. Marlene's ringtone. He stared at it, then declined the call. The board meeting is at 9, I said. You have until then to decide whose side you're on, but either way, Marlene's going down. He looked up at me, and for the first time in years, I saw my real father there, the man who'd taught me everything I knew about business. What do you need me to do? Nothing, I replied. Just watch, and remember who your real family is. After he left, Virginia poured us both more wine. You know she's going to retaliate the moment she realizes what's happening. I nodded, pulling up another file on my laptop, Marlene's previous marriage records, carefully hidden but not well enough. Let her try. I've got 6 months of preparation against her 2 years of fraud. Tomorrow, we let the first bomb drop. And then? I smiled, thinking of Marlene's smug face in the foyer. Then we watch her world burn. The boardroom was silent, except for the soft hum of the projector. On the screen, transaction after transaction scrolled past, each one connecting Marlene's private accounts to company funds. I stood at the head of the table, watching faces shift from confusion to shock to anger. As you can see, I said, clicking to the next slide, over $2 million have been diverted through shell companies in the past 18 months. Marlene shot to her feet. This is ridiculous. These are legitimate business expenses. Like this consulting firm? I pulled up Krista's company registration. Established 3 weeks ago by your college roommate, with no business history or credentials, yet receiving $500,000. Christian, our CFO, cleared his throat. I can confirm these numbers are accurate. I've been tracking the discrepancies for months. My father sat silent, his face ashen. Marlene reached for his hand, but he pulled away. This is a witch hunt, Marlene declared, her voice shaking. Everett, tell them about how unstable Anne's been, how she's trying to undermine our marriage. Mrs. Fuller, one of the board members interrupted. Please explain these offshore accounts. Before she could answer, the door opened. Caleb walked in, carrying a stack of papers. Sorry I'm late. I brought those documents you asked for, Anne. Marlene's eyes narrowed. Caleb, what are you doing? He met her gaze steadily. The right thing, finally. He distributed the papers, copies of emails between Marlene and Krista, discussing how to hide their tracks. You little snake, Marlene hissed. After everything I've done for you. You mean like threatening to ruin my career if I didn't spy on Anne? Caleb's voice was cold. Yeah, thanks for that. The board chairman stood up. I think we've seen enough. Mrs. Fuller, please leave the premises. Security will escort you to collect your personal belongings. Everett! Marlene turned to my father, desperation in her eyes. Are you going to let them do this to me? My father finally looked up. Did you really think you could steal from my company and get away with it? Your company? She laughed hysterically. You mean the company you signed over to me last week? The room went silent. I smiled. About that. I nodded to Virginia, who stood up from her seat in the corner. As the company's legal counsel, Virginia said, I should point out that any recent changes to company ownership are null and void, given the evidence of coercion and fraud we've presented. Marlene's face went white. Security appeared at the door. This isn't over, she spat, grabbing her designer bag. You have no idea what I'm capable of. Actually, I replied, I do. That's why I've already forwarded all of this to the SEC. After she was escorted out, the board quickly voted to freeze all suspicious accounts and launch a full audit. As people filed out, my father approached me. Anne, Save it, I cut him off. We're not done yet. What do you mean? I pulled out my phone, showing him the notification that had just come in. Marlene just tried to access the executive account. Good thing I changed those passwords last night. He ran a hand through his hair. I've been such a fool. Yes, you have. I gathered my things. And now you get to watch while I clean up your mess. Caleb followed me out to my car. She's going to retaliate. You know that, right? Let her try. I checked another notification. Right now she's probably discovering that her personal accounts have been frozen too. Anne! Marlene's voice rang across the parking garage. She stormed toward us, heels clicking furiously. You think you're so clever, don't you? Wait until the press hears about your little cocaine habit. I laughed. You mean the fake photos Krista doctored? Already dealt with. Check your email. Her phone dinged. She opened it, face draining of colour as she saw herself and Krista discussing their photo manipulation scheme, courtesy of the office cameras she'd installed herself. You're finished, Marlene, I said quietly. Walk away while you still can. You bitch, she whispered. You've been planning this all along. No, I corrected her. I've been watching you dig your own grave. I just made sure you fell into it. She raised her hand to slap me, but Caleb caught her wrist. Don't, he warned. Security's still watching. She yanked her arm away and stormed off, nearly tripping in her expensive heels. That went well, Caleb said dryly. My phone buzzed. Christian warning me that Marlene had just called Krista. It's not over, I told Caleb. She's going to try something desperate now. What's our next move? I smiled, thinking of the sealed envelope in Virginia's safe. We wait. Sometimes the best revenge is letting your enemy destroy themselves. And Dad? I watched our father through the office windows above, standing alone in the boardroom. He made his choice. Now he lives with it. The war wasn't over, but today's battle was won, and I had plenty more ammunition left. Breaking news! Heiress Anne accused of corporate espionage. Pearl read from her phone, sitting across from me at our favourite coffee shop. Well, that didn't take long. I sipped my latte. Marlene's getting predictable. There's more. Pearl scrolled down. Anonymous sources claim you've been selling company secrets to competitors. They're saying you installed spyware on company computers. Interesting theory, I said, pulling out my laptop, especially since I have footage of Marlene installing that exact spyware herself last month. My phone lit up with a text from Christian. She's in the building. With lawyers. Showtime, I told Pearl, packing up. Want to watch the fireworks? We arrived at the office just as Marlene was strutting through the lobby with two suited men. She froze when she saw me. Perfect timing, I called out. I was just about to show the board something interesting about your previous marriage. Her face twitched. What are you talking about? You know, your marriage to Richard? The one that ended right after you drained his accounts? I watched her lawyers exchange glances. Or did you forget to mention that to your legal team? That's ancient history, she snapped. And completely irrelevant. The pattern of fraud isn't irrelevant. Virginia appeared behind me, carrying a thick folder. Neither is the fact that you're still legally married to him. The lawyers stopped walking. One of them turned to Marlene. What is she talking about? I pulled out my phone, projecting documents onto the lobby's glass wall. Richard filed for divorce, but it was never finalized, which makes your marriage to my father invalid, and every document you've signed as Mrs. Fuller. I smiled. Well, that's fraud. You're lying, Marlene whispered, but her hands were shaking. Meeting room 3, I said to the lawyers. I have copies of everything for you. One lawyer followed Virginia, while the other stayed with Marlene, who was frantically texting on her phone. Calling Krista? I asked. Don't bother. She's probably busy with the SEC agents who arrived at her house this morning. Marlene's phone clattered to the floor. You can't prove anything. Actually, Caleb's voice came from behind her. He was holding up his phone, recording. You just did. Again. You ungrateful little... She lunged at him, but security stepped forward. Ms. Griffin, the guard said, using her real surname, I'll have to ask you to leave. This isn't over, she shouted as they escorted her out. You have no idea what I'm capable of. Actually, my father's voice boomed from the elevator. We do. He walked toward us, looking more like his old self than he had in years. The board just voted. You're being investigated for fraud, theft, and corporate espionage. Everett, please. She tried to soften her voice. They're manipulating you. Anne's turning you against me. Like you turned me against my own daughter. He held up a USB drive. Christian showed me the recordings. Every conversation where you lied about Anne, every time you manipulated me. It's all here. Marlene's mask finally cracked. You think you've won? She snarled at me. Watch what happens to your precious reputation when the media gets my story. You mean this story? Pearl stepped forward, press badge displayed. As the senior reporter for the Business Daily, I'd love to hear more about your fraudulent marriage and corporate theft. Marlene's lawyers returned, looking grim. Ms. Griffin, we can no longer represent you, and we strongly advise you to retain criminal defense counsel. She backed away, her designer heels stumbling on the marble floor. This isn't... You can't... I can, I said quietly. And I did. You gave my father an ultimatum, remember? Now I'm giving you one. Leave now, or I release everything. Every scam, every theft, every manipulation. Your choice. She looked around wildly, finding no allies. Even the security guards were turning away. Finally, she straightened her spine, trying to salvage some dignity. You'll regret this, she said, before clicking her way to the exit. Anne, my father started, but I held up my hand. Not now. I turned to Virginia. Is everything ready for Phase 2? She nodded. The audit team arrives tomorrow, and I've frozen all accounts connected to Krista's consulting firm. Good. I checked my phone, another text from Christian, because Marlene just tried to transfer $5 million to an offshore account. She can't access anything, Caleb confirmed. All codes have been changed. Pearl was already typing on her tablet. Want me to run the story? Not yet. I watched through the glass doors as Marlene got into her car. Let's see what desperate move she makes next. Sometimes the best way to catch a snake is to let it show its fangs. And then? My father asked. I turned to him, letting him see the determination in my eyes. And then we make sure she never hurts another family again. The lobby slowly cleared, but I stayed, watching Marlene's car disappear into traffic. She thought she was escaping, but really, she was just running straight into my next trap. The knock on my office door came at exactly 3 p.m. Krista stood there, mascara streaked down her face, clutching her designer bag like a shield. They're going to arrest me, aren't they? Her voice trembled. I gestured to the chair across from my desk. That depends on what you tell me in the next hour. She sank into the seat, her usual confidence shattered. Marlene, she said it would be easy money. Just move some numbers around, create some invoices, and help her steal millions? I leaned forward. How much did she promise you? 10%. Krista wiped her eyes. But I never saw most of it. She kept saying the big payoff was coming. My phone buzzed. A text from Virginia. SEC wants to meet tomorrow. They have questions about Marlene's previous marriage scam. Start talking, I told Krista. Everything. From the beginning. She spilled it all. How Marlene had approached her 2 years ago, promising easy money. The fake consulting firm was just the latest in a string of schemes. There were others, fake vendors, inflated invoices, phantom employees on payroll. And this morning, I prompted. Krista's hands shook. She called me, screaming about moving money offshore, said if I didn't help her, she'd make sure I took the fall for everything. Like this? I played a recording of their morning call, watching Krista's face pale. You have everything? Everything. I slid a document across the desk. Sign this confession, testify against Marlene, and I'll tell the SEC you cooperated fully. She grabbed the pen, but before she could sign, my office door burst open. Marlene stormed in, wild-eyed. Don't you dare! She screamed at Krista. One word and You'll what? I stood up. Threaten her like you threatened Caleb? Or try to frame her like you framed me? You smug little bitch. Marlene advanced toward my desk. You think you're so clever, but you have no idea what's coming. Actually, my father's voice came from the doorway. We do. He walked in with 2 SEC agents. These gentlemen would like to ask you some questions about certain overseas transactions. Marlene's face went from rage to panic in an instant. She spun toward Krista. Whatever she's offering, I'll double it, triple it. But Krista was already signing the confession. I'm sorry, Marlene. I can't go to prison for you. Prison! Marlene laughed hysterically. You think I'm going to prison? Your father won't let that happen. Will you, darling? My father stepped forward. I've already given my statement to the authorities. About everything. Everything? Her voice went deadly quiet. The forged signatures, he said. The manipulated accounts. How you drugged my coffee the day I signed over the company's shares. The SEC agents moved closer. Marlene looked around wildly, then grabbed her phone. One call, she threatened, and every newspaper in the country gets proof of Anne's drug addiction. You mean these photos? I projected the doctored images onto my office wall, along with metadata showing they were manipulated. Already sent to the police as evidence of extortion. Marlene's phone slipped from her fingers. She lunged for my desk, sending papers flying. I'll destroy you! I'll destroy everything! Security rushed in, restraining her as she thrashed and screamed. The SEC agents stepped forward with handcuffs. Marlene Griffin, one agent said. You're under arrest for fraud, embezzlement, and corporate theft. As they led her away, she locked eyes with me. This isn't over. You'll never be rid of me. Actually, Virginia appeared with another document. The divorce papers from Richard just came through. Finally processed after all these years. You're not just losing the company, Marlene. You're losing everything. Krista watched them take Marlene away, then turned to me. What happens now? Now, I said, you tell the SEC everything. Every account, every scheme, every conversation. After everyone left, my father lingered. Anne, I know I can never make up for... You're right, I cut him off. You can't, but the company still needs a CEO. I handed him a resignation letter, his own. Sign it. His hand shook as he took the pen. What will you do? Clean up your mess. Restore the company's reputation. Try to forget how easily you threw me away. I turned to the window, watching Marlene being placed in a police car below. The board meets tomorrow to elect new leadership. You'll make a better CEO than I ever was, he said quietly, signing the paper. I know. I didn't turn around. You should go home, Dad. Pack your things. Take some time to think about your choices. After he left, Caleb came in. That was brutal. It was necessary. I faced him. Ready to be my new CFO? He smiled. Ready to be your brother again. Below, the police car carrying Marlene pulled away. One battle was over, but the war wasn't finished. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, but for now, I allowed myself a small smile of satisfaction. Sometimes revenge tastes better served cold, with a side of justice. The courtroom fell silent as Marlene was led in, her designer outfit replaced by a drab grey suit. She looked smaller somehow, less threatening, but her eyes still burned with hatred when they met mine. "All rise," the bailiff called. Virginia squeezed my hand as we stood. "Ready?" I nodded, watching Marlene's lawyer shuffle papers nervously. He knew what was coming. Everyone did. "Your Honor," the prosecutor began, "we'd like to call our first witness, Krista Robertson." Krista walked to the stand, refusing to look at Marlene. For 2 hours, she detailed every scheme, every fraud, every manipulation. The jury took notes furiously as she described how Marlene had orchestrated the theft of millions. "And these offshore accounts?" The prosecutor held up bank statements. "Marlene said they were untraceable," Krista replied. "She bragged that she'd done this before, with her first husband." Marlene's lawyer jumped up. "Objection! Previous allegations are not allegations," the prosecutor interrupted, producing certified court documents. "Conviction. Mrs. Griffin served 18 months for financial fraud in 2018, shortly after her first marriage ended." Marlene's face contorted. She turned to whisper urgently to her lawyer, who shook his head. Next came Christian, methodically walking through the company's financial records. Then the SEC agents, presenting evidence of international wire fraud. With each witness, Marlene seemed to shrink further into her chair. Finally, it was my turn. "Ms. Fuller," the prosecutor began, "when did you first suspect your stepmother's activities?" "The day she married my father," I said clearly. "The same day she tried to access company accounts she shouldn't have known existed." "Objection!" Marlene's lawyer called. "Speculation!" "Overruled," the judge replied. "Continue." I described finding the first discrepancies, gathering evidence, watching Marlene systematically manipulate my father and poison him against me. "And this recording?" The prosecutor played the clip of Marlene threatening Caleb. "Made the day before she convinced my father to throw me out of my own home." Marlene suddenly stood up. "This is all lies. She's the one who—" "Mrs. Griffin," the judge warned. "Control yourself, or you'll be removed." She sat, but her eyes promised vengeance. I continued testifying, laying out every detail of her schemes. When I finished, her lawyer looked defeated. During the recess, Caleb found me in the hallway. "Dad's here," he said quietly. I turned to see my father standing awkwardly by the water fountain, looking older than I'd ever seen him. "The prosecutor wants him to testify," Caleb continued, "about the drugged coffee, the forged signatures." "Good," I said. "Let him face what he enabled." Back in the courtroom, my father took the stand. His testimony was devastating, describing how Marlene had manipulated him, drugged him, used him to attack his own children. "I was a fool," he concluded, his voice breaking. "I chose her over my own daughter, and I'll regret that for the rest of my life." Marlene stood up again, this time throwing a water glass. "You weak, pathetic man. After everything I did for you." "Remove the defendant," the judge ordered. As security dragged her out, Marlene screamed, "You'll all pay for this. Every one of you." The jury took less than 2 hours to reach a verdict. "Guilty on all counts," the foreman announced. The judge looked at Marlene sternly. "Given the extent of your crimes and your previous conviction, I sentence you to 15 years in federal prison. Additionally, you are ordered to pay full restitution." I didn't hear the rest. It was over. Finally, over. Outside the courthouse, reporters swarmed us. Pearl pushed through, microphone ready. "Anne, how does it feel to take back your company?" "The company was never the point," I replied. "This was about justice, about showing that you can't destroy families for profit, and expect to get away with it. My father approached as the reporters dispersed. Anne, please, can we talk? About what? I turned to him. About how you believed her over me? How you threw away 28 years of trust for a con artist? I'm sorry, he whispered. I know it's not enough, but… You're right, I cut him off. It's not enough. The board meets tomorrow to formalize my position as CEO. You should finish clearing out your office. He nodded sadly and walked away. Caleb watched him go. That was harsh, he said. That was necessary. I checked my phone. Virginia had already filed the final paperwork transferring company control. Actions have consequences. He made his choice. And now? I looked up at the building that had been my second home since childhood. Now we rebuild. The right way this time. The war was over, but the aftermath was just beginning. I'd won, but victory tasted more bitter than sweet. Sometimes the price of justice is losing the very things you fought to protect, but I'd do it all again in a heartbeat. 6 months after Marlene's conviction, I sat in my father's old office, my office now, reviewing quarterly reports. The company had recovered faster than expected, our stock price climbing steadily since the scandal broke. A knock at the door interrupted my thoughts. Come in. Virginia entered, holding a newspaper. You need to see this. The headline read, Convicted fraudster attempts suicide in prison. Below was Marlene's mugshot. She's alive, Virginia said before I could ask. But she left a note, blaming you, of course. I set down the paper. Any other good news? Actually, yes. Your father's asking to meet. No. Anne. Virginia sat down. He's selling his remaining shares, all of them. That got my attention. To whom? That's why he wants to meet. He's offering them to you first. I was about to respond when Caleb burst in. We have a problem. A big one. He turned on the office TV. Krista was giving an interview, tears streaming down her face. I was forced to lie in court. Anne Fuller threatened my family if I didn't testify against Marlene. That little… I grabbed my phone, but Virginia stopped me. Wait, let her finish. On screen, Krista continued. I can't live with the guilt anymore. Marlene was innocent. Anne orchestrated everything to steal the company. Pearl called next. I'm already on it. I have proof she was paid to give that interview. And guess who's behind it? Marlene, I said. From prison. Her old friend from the first fraud case. They're trying to get her conviction overturned. I turned to Virginia. Options? We release the original recordings, all of them. Show the world exactly who Marlene is, and was. Do it. I stood up. And call my father. Tell him I'll meet him. An hour later, I sat across from him at the cafe where Mom used to take me for hot chocolate. He looked tired, defeated. You've done an amazing job with the company, he said quietly. I know. The shares. They're yours if you want them. At whatever price you think is fair. I studied him. Why now? Because I'm leaving. He stared into his coffee. Moving to Arizona. There's nothing left for me here except reminders of my mistakes. Dad. No. Let me finish. He looked up, eyes wet. I failed you. Completely. I let a manipulative woman destroy our family because I was too weak, too blind to see what was happening. The company should be yours. It always should have been. My phone buzzed. Pearl sending confirmation that she'd exposed Krista's paid interview. Another buzz. Virginia had released the recordings. One condition, I said finally. You tell me the truth. All of it. Why her? He took a shaky breath. She reminded me of your mother. At first. The energy, the ambition. But where your mother's heart was pure, Marlene's was poison. By the time I realized that, she had her hooks in me. The drugs, the manipulation. But those are excuses. I chose her over you, and I'll never forgive myself. Mum would be disappointed, I said quietly. I know. He pulled out an envelope. The shares are already signed over to you. Use them better than I did. As he stood to leave, I caught his arm. Dad, Arizona's far. It needs to be. He attempted a smile. Maybe someday. Maybe, I echoed. Back at the office, Caleb was waiting with news. Krista's recanting her interview. Apparently someone reminded her that perjury means prison time. And Marlene? Isolated in protective custody after the suicide attempt. No more outside contact. I looked around the office, my office, at the photos I'd restored to the walls. Mum and Dad at the company's founding. Me at 16, learning the business. Caleb's college graduation. You okay? He asked. Getting there. I picked up the envelope with the shares. Want to help me rebuild our family's legacy? The right way this time? He grinned. Partners? Partners? That night, I visited Mum's grave for the first time since the trial. The autumn air was crisp, leaves crunching under my feet. I did it, Mum, I whispered. I protected what you and Dad built. I just wish... I wiped my eyes. I wish he'd been strong enough to protect it with me. My phone lit up. Virginia sending the latest news. Marlene's appeal had been denied. Krista's retraction was trending. The company's stock had jumped another 10 points. Justice had been served. Karma had done its work, and I'd taken back everything Marlene tried to steal. But standing there in the gathering darkness, victory felt hollow. I'd won the war, saved the company, and restored our family's reputation. But the cost was a father in Arizona, a brother still healing from betrayal, and a wound in my heart that might never fully close. Sometimes winning feels an awful lot like losing. The autumn board meeting was wrapping up when my assistant rushed in. There's someone here to see you, says it's urgent. I looked up to find Richard, Marlene's first husband, standing in my doorway. The board members filed out, leaving us alone. I heard about the appeal denial, he said, taking a seat. Thought you should know what happened after my case. I leaned forward. I'm listening. She wrote to me from prison, like she's doing to your father now. He pulled out a stack of letters. Manipulation, guilt trips, promises of redemption. I believed her, let her back into my life after she served her time. And she destroyed me, again, took everything I'd rebuilt. He slid the letters across my desk. Don't let your father make my mistake. My phone buzzed, Caleb texting that Dad had called him, again. Thank you, I told Richard, for the warning. After he left, I called Virginia. Did you know about the letters? Just found out. She's been writing to him daily, playing on his guilt, promising to change. I thought about my father, alone in Arizona, probably reading similar letters right now. Get me his address. The flight to Phoenix was turbulent, matching my mood. I found him in a small house on the outskirts of the city, looking surprised to see me. Anne, what are you... I held up Marlene's latest letter, postmarked yesterday. We need to talk. He deflated, stepping aside to let me in. The house was sparse, with moving boxes still unpacked. On the coffee table, dozens of prison letters lay scattered. She's different now, he started weakly. No, she's not. I handed him Richard's letters. She did this before. It's another manipulation. I know, but what? I picked up one of her letters. My darling Everett, I've changed. Prison has shown me the error of my ways. With your help, I could... Dad, stop. Just stop. He sank onto the couch. I've lost everything. My company, my children's trust, my self-respect. Not everything. I sat beside him. Caleb misses you. And I took a deep breath. I'm angry. I'm hurt. But you're still my father. After what I did, parents mess up, sometimes catastrophically. I gathered Marlene's letters, but letting her manipulate you again? That's a choice, and it's not too late to make a better one. He stared at the letters for a long moment, then, without a word, he walked to the fireplace and threw them in. The flames consumed Marlene's poisoned words. "What now?" he asked quietly. "Now?" I pulled out my laptop. "You helped me understand these contracts from 2019. Something's not adding up in the Asian market numbers." His eyes lit up, the businessman awakening. For 3 hours we pored over documents, his expertise filling gaps I hadn't even noticed. It felt like old times, before Marlene, when we were just father and daughter building something together. My phone rang. Caleb. "You found him?" "I found him. Want to say hi?" There was a pause. Yeah, I do." I handed the phone to Dad, watching his face as he spoke to his son for the first time in months. When he finished, his eyes were wet. "The company's annual charity gala is next month," I said casually. "We could use an experienced consultant for the Asian expansion plans." He looked up sharply. "Anne, not as CEO, not even as an executive, just a consultant with strict oversight. And Caleb wants his father back. So do I." I stood up. "But no more letters, no more Marlene. She took 2 years from our family. She doesn't get another second." He nodded, then walked to his desk and pulled out a photo. Me at 16, sitting at his office desk, learning the business. I kept this, to remind me of what I almost destroyed. Keep it to remind you of what we can rebuild. I checked my watch. "My flight's in 2 hours. Coming?" He looked around at his half-unpacked exile. "You sure?" "No," I admitted, "but family's worth the risk." On the flight home, he showed me more gaps in our international contracts, places where his experience could help. We talked about Caleb's ideas for expansion, about Mom, about everything except Marlene. She'd tried to destroy our family. Instead, she'd forced us to rebuild it stronger. Her letters would keep coming, her manipulations would never stop, but they'd fall on deaf ears. We had a company to run, a legacy to protect, and a family to heal. Sometimes the best revenge isn't destruction, it's reconstruction. Building something so strong that those who tried to tear it down become nothing but a cautionary tale. A tale that ends not with happily ever after, but with something better. Hope, healing, and the hard-earned wisdom to never let anyone come between family again.
The annual Wong family reunion always felt like walking into a minefield, but this year the explosions would be different. I just didn't know it yet. I'm Jordan, and I was running late. Again. The familiar driveway of my parents' suburban home was already lined with luxury cars, Oakley's pearl-white Tesla commanding the prime spot nearest the door. Of course. "Jordan, you made it." My mother rushed forward as I entered, her silk dress swishing. Her smile was genuine, but tinged with that familiar worry. "Oakley's been asking where you were." I bet she has, I thought, smoothing down my simple blue sundress. "Traffic was terrible, Mom. Sorry I'm late." "When isn't she late?" Oakley's voice carried across the room like a perfectly aimed arrow. My sister glided over, champagne in hand, looking every bit the successful real estate agent in her designer outfit. But I guess that's what happens when you take the bus. "I drove, actually," I said, forcing a smile. "The hospital parking is expensive, but the nurse's lot has some perks." "Oh, right, still doing that nursing thing?" Oakley's perfectly manicured hand waved dismissively. "Brian and I just closed on our 4th investment property this year. You should really think about your future, sis." Before I could respond, my father appeared. "Oakley, sweetheart, tell everyone about that new development deal." I watched as she commanded the room's attention, something she'd perfected since childhood. My cousin Jeremy caught my eye from across the room and gave me a sympathetic smile. "Everyone," Oakley clinked her glass. "I have an announcement." The room hushed. I grabbed a glass of wine from a passing tray, already knowing this wouldn't be good. "Brian and I are looking at the most amazing vacation property in the Hamptons," she gushed. "It's absolutely perfect. Private beach access, 6 bedrooms, infinity pool." She paused dramatically. "Of course, not everyone can afford such investments. Jordan, didn't you mention you were having money troubles?" The room went silent. I froze, wine glass halfway to my lips. "I never said that," I managed. "Oh, come on," Oakley pressed, her smile sharp. "I saw those collection notices in your mailbox when I dropped by last month. No shame in admitting you're struggling. We can't all be successful." Heat crept up my neck as relatives shifted uncomfortably. My mother's face fell, and my father looked anywhere but at me. "I'm doing fine, Oakley," I said quietly. "Fine? Sweetie, you live in a tiny apartment and take the bus. It's okay to admit you need help. That's what family's for." Her voice dripped with fake concern. Brian, her husband, laughed nervously. "Oak, maybe we should—" "No, really," she continued. "Jordan's always been the practical one. Some people just aren't meant for bigger things." That's when something inside me snapped, not in a dramatic, visible way. Instead, it was like a quiet click, the sound of a lock turning, a plan falling into place. I smiled, took a sip of wine, and said nothing. "Jordan?" my mother ventured, concerned by my silence. "Oakley's right," I said finally, my voice steady. "Some people aren't meant for bigger things. They're meant for smarter things." My sister's smile faltered slightly. "Excuse me," I said, pulling out my phone as it buzzed. "Work emergency." As I stepped onto the back porch, I saw Guy's message. "Everything's set. The papers are signed." I looked through the window at my family. At Oakley holding court, at my parents beaming at their successful daughter, at the relatives who'd watched this dynamic play out for years. My phone buzzed again. This time it was my real estate agent. "Congratulations, the Hampton house is yours." I smiled, thinking of Oakley's face when she'd announced her plans for that very same house. She had no idea I'd been quietly watching her social media posts about it for months. No idea I'd been building my wealth slowly and strategically while she flaunted hers. No idea that her perfect vacation home dream had just been purchased by her struggling little sister. I typed back quickly. "Perfect. Don't let anyone know about the sale yet." The party continued inside, laughter and chatter floating through the windows. I stayed on the porch a moment longer, savoring the calm before the storm I was about to create. Sometimes the best revenge isn't served cold. It's served with perfect timing. "You're actually insane," Guy said, stirring his coffee as we sat in our usual corner of the hospital cafeteria. Like, actually certifiably insane. And I love it. 3 days had passed since the family reunion, and I was still riding the high of my secret purchase. 7 years of night shifts and living below my means had to pay off sometime. But the Hamptons house? That's next level petty. He leaned forward, grinning. "Tell me everything." I pulled out my phone, showing him the listing photos. 6 bedrooms, private beach access, and the infinity pool Oakley wouldn't shut up about on Instagram. The same one she's been posting about for months? The very same. I swiped through more photos. Remember when I started picking up extra shifts 4 years ago? When Oakley told everyone at Christmas dinner that nursing was a backup career for people who couldn't hack medical school? I nodded. That's when I started seriously investing. Every extra shift, every bonus, straight into my portfolio. While she was posting about her designer handbags, I was meeting with financial advisors. And nobody knew? Why would they? Oakley made sure everyone saw me as the struggling little sister. It was the perfect cover. My phone buzzed, a text from Jeremy. "Oak's posting about the house again. You seeing this?" I opened Instagram. There was Oakley, posed in front of the house during what must have been her viewing, caption reading, "Dreams do come true. Can't wait to make this paradise ours." Blessed Israel luxury, real estate. Guy nearly choked on his coffee. She doesn't know? The seller's agent is keeping it quiet at my request. She thinks she's getting it. Jordan. A sharp voice cut through our conversation. Dr. Martinez hurried over. Multiple car pileup coming in. We need all hands. I grabbed my coffee. Back to reality. Dinner tonight? Wouldn't miss it. This is better than Netflix. The next 12 hours were a blur of trauma patients, surgical assists, and paperwork. By the time I got to Guy's apartment, I was exhausted but wired. Your timing is incredible, he said, handing me a glass of wine as I collapsed onto his couch. Look what just came in the mail. He handed me an envelope. Inside was a letter from a development company, offering to buy my new property for significantly more than I'd paid. They're building a resort complex, Guy explained. They've been trying to buy up properties in that area. I stared at the number. It was enough to double my investment instantly. You're not considering it, are you? Guy asked, reading my expression. No way. This isn't about money. I set the letter down. You weren't there for my graduation. The nursing ceremony? I thought your family went. They did. Oakley showed up late, talked through my speech, then spent the whole dinner talking about her new real estate license. When I mentioned I'd graduated top of my class, she said, "That's cute, but let's talk about real achievements." Guy winced. Your parents? Dad asked Oakley for investment advice. Mom just wanted everyone to get along. I took a long sip of wine. That's been my whole life. Oakley shines, I fade into the background, but not anymore. My phone lit up with a family group chat notification. Oakley had sent a message. Big news coming soon. Family dinner at my place this weekend to celebrate. She thinks she's getting the house, Guy said, reading over my shoulder. She thinks a lot of things. I showed him my banking app, where years of careful saving and investing had built a surprisingly robust portfolio. Nobody ever asked how I could afford to live alone in the city on a nurse's salary. They just assumed I was struggling. Because that's what Oakley told them to think. Exactly. I forwarded the development company's letter to my email. You know what the best part is? I learned everything about real estate investment from listening to her brag about it at family gatherings. Every strategy, every market trend. She taught me everything I needed to know to beat her at her own game. Guy's phone buzzed. He laughed. Jeremy wants to know if you're coming to Oakley's dinner. Wouldn't miss it. I pulled up the property documents on my phone. The closing papers should be finalized by Friday. Just in time for her announcement. Just in time, I agreed, thinking about the look on Oakley's face when she realized her dream house announcement was about to turn into my victory lap. Another text came through, this time from my mother. Oakley says you haven't RSVP'd for Saturday. Please come, sweetheart. Family should stick together. I smiled as I typed my response. Don't worry, Mom. I wouldn't miss this for the world. Saturday arrived with the weight of anticipation. I pulled up to Oakley's McMansion just as Jeremy was getting out of his car. Perfect timing, he said, falling into step beside me. You ready for whatever this is? More ready than she is, I muttered, clutching my purse with its hidden envelope. Inside, Oakley's house was a shrine to her supposed success. All chrome and white surfaces, designer everything. Family photos lined the walls, carefully curated to show her best angles. Jordan, Brian greeted me with his usual warmth. Oak's in the kitchen. She's been cooking all day. She cooks now? Jeremy whispered as we walked through. She orders in and transfers it to her own dishes, I whispered back. Always has. The kitchen was a flurry of activity. Oakley stood at the island, arranging takeout containers' contents onto serving platters while my mother helped. Empty bags from an upscale catering service were poorly hidden in the trash. Jordan, you came. Oakley's smile was bright but didn't reach her eyes. I was just telling Mom about the amazing news. Can't wait to hear it, I said, accepting a glass of wine from Brian. Oh, you're going to love it. It's life-changing. She straightened a platter of what I recognized as the local bistro's signature appetizers. Unlike some people, I believe in growing and advancing. My mother shot me an apologetic look. The doorbell rang again. My father arrived with Guy, who I'd invited as moral support. Oakley's eyebrows raised slightly at his presence. "Still hanging out with hospital people?" she asked, her tone dripping with condescension. "Still pretending you cook?" I countered quietly, nodding toward the hidden takeout containers. Her eyes narrowed, but before she could respond, Brian called everyone to the dining room. "Before we eat," Oakley announced, standing at the head of the table, "I have amazing news to share." She gripped Brian's hand. "As you know, we've been looking at the most gorgeous property in the Hamptons." I felt Guy squeeze my knee under the table. "And after some very exclusive negotiations," she continued, "we are absolutely thrilled to announce—" "Actually," Brian interrupted, checking his phone with a frown. "Honey, I just got an email from our agent." "Not now, sweetie. As I was saying, Oak, the house sold. To someone else." The silence that followed was deafening. "What?" Oakley's voice was sharp. "That's impossible. Check again." "It sold 2 days ago. The agent says the new owner wants to remain anonymous for now." Oakley's face flushed red. "But we had an agreement. We were going to announce—" "We had a viewing, Oak. We never made an offer. Because they promised to hold it for us." I took a slow sip of wine, watching my sister's perfect facade crack. "Well," my father said, clearly trying to salvage the moment, "there will be other properties, sweetheart." "No." Oakley slammed her hand on the table, making the plates rattle. "That was our house. My house. I already told everyone." She stopped, noticing my calm expression. "Why aren't you more upset about this?" "Why would I be upset?" Because you're supposed to be happy for me. You're supposed to be jealous." Jeremy choked on his wine. "Oak," Brian said softly, "maybe we should take a minute." "No. This was supposed to be perfect. I was going to show everyone." She trailed off, her carefully constructed image crumbling. "Show everyone what?" I asked, my voice steady. "How successful I am. How much better." She caught herself, but not before our parents exchanged worried glances. "Better than who, Oakley?" She didn't answer, but her glare said everything. "Dinner's getting cold," my mother interjected weakly. "You know what's interesting?" I said, reaching for my purse. "Success isn't always about who shouts the loudest." "What's that supposed to mean?" "It means—" I pulled out my phone, pulling up the property photos. "Sometimes the quiet ones surprise you." "Jordan," Guy warned softly, but I was done being quiet. "Remember when you told everyone I was probably going bankrupt?" I slid my phone across the table. Funny thing about that, Oakley grabbed the phone, her eyes widening as she scrolled through the familiar photos of her dream house. Her dream house with my name on the deed. "This is a joke," she whispered. "The closing papers arrived yesterday," I said, pulling the envelope from my purse. "Would you like to see them?" The room erupted in chaos. Brian was staring at me in disbelief. My father was demanding explanations, and my mother had her head in her hands. But all I could see was Oakley's face, the exact moment she realized her struggling little sister had beaten her at her own game. "How?" she managed finally. I stood up, smoothing my dress. "Maybe we should talk about real achievements." "This isn't possible," Oakley kept saying, flipping through the closing papers with trembling hands. "You can't afford this. You're a nurse." "A nurse who knows how to invest," I replied. "You taught me that, remember? All those family dinners where you talked about market trends and property values?" Brian leaned over Oakley's shoulder, examining the documents. "These are legitimate. She really bought it. But—" my father started, then stopped, looking at me like he was seeing me for the first time. "Jordan, how long have you been planning this?" "Planning?" I laughed. "I just saw an investment opportunity and took it." "Isn't that what you always praised Oakley for doing?" My sister's face had gone from red to white. "You did this to spite me." "Did I? Or did you just assume nobody else could achieve what you wanted to achieve?" Girls, my mother pleaded, please don't fight. We're not fighting, Mom, I said, taking another sip of wine. We're having a business discussion. Isn't that right, Oakley? Jeremy cleared his throat. Maybe we should eat before everything gets cold. How? Oakley demanded, ignoring him. Where did you get the money? You really want to know? I pulled out my phone again, opening my investment portfolio. Every time you mocked my career, I picked up an extra shift. Every time you bragged about your success, I invested more. Do you know how much night shift differential adds up to over 7 years? But your apartment, the bus, is in an up-and-coming neighborhood that's tripled in value since I bought it. And I take the bus because parking at the hospital costs a fortune. It's called being practical, Guy spoke up. Jordan's one of the highest-paid nurses in the trauma department. She's been published in medical journals. That's enough, Oakley snapped. She turned to Brian. Call our lawyer. There has to be a way to contest this. Brian shifted uncomfortably. Oak, we never made an offer. We have no legal grounds to... Then make some. This is our house. No, I said quietly. It's my house. And I think you're having trouble with that because you never thought I could be competition. The room fell silent again. My father was staring at his plate. My mother was close to tears, and Jeremy was trying very hard not to smile. Competition? Oakley laughed, but it sounded hollow. This isn't about competition. This is about you trying to steal my dream. Your dream? I stood up, placing both hands on the table. Let's talk about dreams, Oakley. Let's talk about my graduation ceremony, where you showed up late and talked through my speech. Or the time I got promoted to head trauma nurse, and you told everyone it was cute that I was playing doctor. Or how about last month's reunion? When you tried to humiliate me in front of our entire family? That's different. I was trying to help. Help? Guy interjected. By spreading rumors about her finances? Stay out of this, Oakley snapped. This is family business. He is family, I said firmly. He's been more supportive than you ever were. Brian suddenly stood up. Oak, we need to talk. Now. About what? About the credit card statements I found. About the real reason we couldn't make an offer on the house. The color drained from Oakley's face. Brian, not now. Yes, now. He turned to the rest of us. I'm sorry, everyone. We need a minute. They disappeared into the kitchen, but their heated whispers carried back to the dining room. Should we? My mother gestured vaguely at the food. Actually, I said, gathering my things, I should go. I have contractors meeting me at my new house tomorrow morning to discuss renovations. Jordan, my father said suddenly, his voice rough. Wait. I paused, purse in hand. I'm sorry. We should have paid more attention. To what, Dad? To my achievements? To the fact that I was building something while Oakley was just talking about building something? From the kitchen, Oakley's voice rose. I was going to pay it back. 60,000 in secret credit card debt? Brian shot back. When were you planning to tell me? My mother's hands flew to her mouth. Jeremy whistled low. I think, Guy said, standing up. That's our cue to leave. As we walked to our cars, the sounds of Oakley and Brian's argument followed us into the night air. Jeremy caught up with us in the driveway. That, he said, was the most amazing thing I've ever seen. It's not over, I replied, looking back at the house. This was just the beginning. What do you mean? I smiled, pulling out my keys. The contractors aren't just doing renovations tomorrow. They're doing an assessment for that resort development company. Guy's eyes widened. You're not... Like I said, I learned from the best. Sometimes the biggest deals happen in stages. The next morning, I stood on the private beach of my new property, watching the waves roll in as contractors walked the perimeter. The resort development company's representative, Sarah, stood beside me with a tablet in hand. The location is perfect, she said. Your property is the key piece we need to complete the resort complex. And the offer? She showed me the number on her tablet. It was triple what I'd paid. That's just the starting point, she added. We're also offering a lifetime membership to the resort once it's built, plus… My phone buzzed. Oakley's name flashed on the screen for the 5th time that morning. I declined the call. Everything okay? Sarah asked. Family drama, nothing unusual. I gestured toward the house. Tell me more about your plans for the property. As she launched into details about the resort complex, another call came through, this time from Jeremy. You need to check Instagram, he said when I answered. Oakley's having a meltdown. I pulled up the app. Oakley had posted a series of stories, each more unhinged than the last. The latest showed her crying in her car. Family betrayal is the worst kind. Can't believe my own sister would do this to me. Ms. Wong? Sarah was waiting expectantly. Sorry, what were you saying about the beachfront access? Before she could answer, a familiar Tesla came roaring up the private drive. Oh no, I muttered as Oakley emerged, designer sunglasses hiding what I assumed were puffy eyes. We need to talk, she shouted, marching across the sand. Sarah raised an eyebrow. Should I give you a moment? No need. I turned to face my sister. Oakley, I'm in a business meeting. Business meeting? She laughed hysterically. Is that what you call destroying your family? The contractors paused their work, watching the scene unfold. The only thing being destroyed is your illusion of superiority, I said calmly. Now, if you'll excuse us, Brian's leaving me. That stopped me cold. What? He found out about everything. The credit cards, the shopping, the lies about our investments. She pulled off her sunglasses, revealing mascara-streaked cheeks. He's staying at his brother's house. Are you happy now? Sarah cleared her throat. I can come back another time. No, I said firmly. Oakley's leaving. You can't just… Actually, I can. This is private property. My private property. And you're trespassing. Your property? She gestured wildly at the house. This was supposed to be mine. My dream house, my perfect life. Perfect life? I stepped closer. You mean the one you built on credit cards and lies? The one where you had to put everyone else down to feel superior? I never… Remember my first apartment? You told everyone I lived in a dangerous neighborhood because I couldn't afford better. That neighborhood is now the hottest real estate market in the city. Jordan, or when I got my first promotion. You said nursing was a dead-end job. Well, guess what? While you were maxing out credit cards to keep up appearances, I was investing my dead-end salary. Sarah's tablet pinged. She glanced at it, then at me. Ms. Wong, the board just approved a higher offer. Oakley's eyes darted to the tablet. What offer? None of your business, I said, but Oakley had already snatched the tablet. Her face went pale as she read. A resort complex? You're selling to developers? Maybe. Or maybe I'll keep it and rent it out. Or maybe I'll just let it sit empty. The point is, it's my decision. You can't. I can. And you know what the best part is? I took the tablet back. I learned everything about real estate from you. Every boast, every brag about your investments. I was listening, taking notes, learning. Tears streamed down her face. I'm your sister. Yes, you are. And for years I watched you succeed while you made sure everyone saw me fail. Now you get to watch me succeed. Ms. Wong? Sarah gestured toward the house. The contractors need your input on the renovation plans. I turned to go, then paused. You know what's ironic, Oakley? If you'd ever bothered to actually be a sister instead of a competitor, we could have done amazing things together. Please, she whispered. Don't do this. Security will escort you out, I said, nodding to the property guards who were already approaching. Don't come back unless you're invited. As I walked away, I heard her call out, Mom and Dad will never forgive you for this. I turned back one last time. Maybe not, but for the first time in my life, I forgive myself for letting you make me feel small, The sound of the waves drowned out her response as I walked toward my house, with Sarah and the contractors. Behind me, I heard the guards politely but firmly escorting Oakley back to her car. Sometimes karma needs a little help, I thought. And sometimes the best revenge is simply succeeding on your own terms. Your mother's called 6 times, Guy said, setting a coffee in front of me in the hospital break room. Jeremy says Oakley's moved back in with your parents. A week had passed since the confrontation at the beach house. I'd been pulling extra shifts to avoid the family drama, but it was catching up to me. Dad left a voicemail, I said, checking my phone. Something about fixing the family and being the bigger person. Are you going to call him back? Before I could answer, my phone lit up with a text from Brian. Can we meet? There's something you need to know. That's new, Guy said, reading over my shoulder. You going to do it? I typed back. Coffee shop across from the hospital. 30 minutes. Brian was already there when I arrived, looking exhausted in a wrinkled suit. Thanks for coming, he said as I sat down. I know things are messy right now. That's one word for it. He pulled out a folder. You need to see these before you make any decisions about the property. Inside were credit card statements, loan documents, and bank records, all with Oakley's name. She's underwater, Brian said quietly. The designer clothes, the fancy cars, the image she created, it's all debt. She was counting on that house to fix everything. How? She was going to use it as collateral for a loan to pay off the credit cards. When that fell through, he ran a hand through his hair. I found out she'd been forging my signature on loan applications. My coffee went cold as I flipped through the documents. The numbers were staggering. Why are you showing me this? Because she's not just destroying herself. She's dragging your parents into it. They're talking about taking out a second mortgage to help her. My phone buzzed. A text from Jeremy. Family emergency meeting at your parents' house tonight. Oakley's idea. You coming? I showed Brian the message. She doesn't know I'm meeting you, he said. But Jordan, be careful. She's desperate. That evening, I pulled up to my parents' house to find it full again, but this time the atmosphere was heavy. Oakley sat on the couch, looking smaller without her usual designer outfit and perfect makeup. Jordan, my mother rushed forward. Thank goodness you came. What's this about? It's about family, my father said. About making things right. Oakley stood up, hands clasped in front of her. I've been doing a lot of thinking. About mistakes and consequences. Oakley, please let me finish. She took a shaky breath. I've hurt people, made bad choices, but I want to make it right. Starting with you, Jordan. Jeremy, sitting in the corner, caught my eye and shook his head slightly. I've been terrible to you, Oakley continued. Competitive, cruel, dismissive. And now I'm paying for it. But it's not just me suffering. Mom and Dad are taking out a second mortgage to cover your debts? I interrupted. The room went silent. How did you... My father started. Brian told me everything. I turned to my parents. Did she tell you about the forged loan applications? The maxed out credit cards? Jordan, please. My mother pleaded. She's trying to make amends. No, she's trying to manipulate you into bailing her out. Again. Oakley's facade cracked. You don't understand. I need help. What you need is consequences. We're putting up the house as collateral, my father said, just until she gets back on her feet. Dad, no. You can't risk everything you've worked for. She's our daughter. So am I. The words echoed in the sudden silence. But you never mortgaged your house when I was starting out. You never rushed to rescue me when things were hard. That's different, my mother said weakly. Why? Because I didn't cry and manipulate? Because I solved my own problems? Oakley stepped forward. If you sell the beach house to those developers, I could... There it is, I laughed. The real reason for this family meeting. You want my house? It could save all of us. Pay off my debts, save Mom and Dad's house. Your debts, not ours, not mine. I grabbed my purse. And that house? It's not for sale. Not to the developers, and certainly not to fix your mistakes. Jordan, wait. My father called as I headed for the door. I turned back one last time. You know what the difference is between Oakley and me? I learned from my mistakes. She just expects everyone else to fix them. The door closed behind me, cutting off their protests. In my car, I pulled out my phone and called Sarah. About that resort offer, I said. I've made my decision. 2 weeks later, I stood in the newly renovated living room of the beach house, watching the sunset through floor-to-ceiling windows. The sound of cars pulling up the driveway broke the peaceful moment. They're here, Guy said, adjusting the appetizer trays we'd set out. Ready? Jeremy asked, handing me a glass of champagne. I nodded. Time to end this. The doorbell rang. I'd invited the entire family, parents, Oakley, Brian, cousins, everyone, for what they thought was a housewarming party. They didn't know about the papers sitting on my desk, waiting to be signed. My mother entered first, clutching her purse like a shield. Oh, Jordan, it's beautiful. The renovations turned out perfectly, I said, watching Oakley's face as she took in the space that could have been hers. Brian hung back, avoiding his wife's gaze. They still weren't living together, according to Jeremy's updates. Well, my father said, clearing his throat, this is quite something. It is, isn't it? I gestured for everyone to sit. But before we celebrate, there's something we need to discuss. Oakley's head snapped up. You're selling to the developers? Not exactly. I picked up the folder from my desk. I've created a trust. A what? My mother asked. A family trust. The house will be its main asset. I started distributing copies of the paperwork. I'm transferring ownership to the trust with specific conditions. Brian leaned forward, reading quickly. This is unexpected. The house will serve as a family vacation property, available to all of us on a rotating schedule. I watched their faces as they read. But there are rules. Rules? Oakley's voice was small. First, the house can never be used as collateral for loans or sold without unanimous consent from all trust members. Second, usage rights are dependent on financial responsibility. Meaning what? My father asked. Meaning anyone who wants to use the house must provide proof of financial stability. No outstanding debts, no legal issues, no hidden credit cards. Oakley's hands trembled as she held the papers. Additionally, I continued, I've arranged for financial counseling services, fully paid for by the trust, available to any family member who needs it. Jordan, my mother started, tears in her eyes. I'm not finished. The trust also includes a scholarship fund for future generations of our family, specifically for medical and nursing education. The room was silent as my words sank in. Why? Oakley finally asked. Because despite everything, we're family, and families should lift each other up, not tear each other down. I met her eyes, but they also shouldn't enable destructive behavior. The counseling services, Brian said slowly. That's your condition for Oakley, isn't it? I nodded. Complete the program, get your finances in order, and you'll have equal access to the house. The same rules apply to everyone. And Mom and Dad's mortgage? Oakley asked. Will remain their responsibility, but the trust includes provisions for emergency family assistance, with strict oversight and repayment terms. My father stood up abruptly. I need some air. Dad, no, let me speak. He turned to face me. All these years I thought. He shook his head. I was wrong about you, Jordan. So wrong. We both were, my mother added, wiping her eyes. Oakley hadn't moved, still staring at the papers. I don't deserve this. No, you don't, I agreed. But that's not the point. The point is giving all of us, a chance to do better. The financial counseling, she said quietly. When can I start? First session is scheduled for Monday, if you want it. She nodded, unable to speak. There's one more thing, I said, pulling out a final document. Brian, this is for you. He took the paper, eyes widening. This is evidence of the forged loan applications. What you do with it is up to you. The room held its breath as Brian stared at the document, then at Oakley. Finally, he tore it in half. Everyone deserves a second chance, he said, but only one. Oakley burst into tears. Now, I said, raising my glass, who's ready for that housewarming party? As the tension broke and people began to mingle, Jeremy pulled me aside. You planned this all along, didn't you? The trust, the counseling, everything? I smiled, watching my family move through the space. My mother examining the kitchen, my father out on the deck. Oakley and Brian talking quietly in a corner. Sometimes the best revenge isn't revenge at all, I said. Sometimes it's being the person they never thought you could be. And sometimes, Guy added, joining us, it's showing them who you've been all along. Through the windows, the sun had set completely, leaving the beach in darkness. But inside, the house glowed with new beginnings and second chances. The autumn breeze carried the scent of salt and coffee as I sat on the beach house deck, reviewing financial reports. The Trust's first quarterly meeting was about to begin, and I wanted everything perfect. Need help with those? Oakley appeared, carrying 2 mugs. She looked different, simpler, but somehow more genuine without the designer facade. Thanks. I accepted the coffee. How was your counseling session? Good. Hard, but good. She sat down. Brian and I are talking about moving into a smaller place, something within our actual budget. That's great. It's weird, actually living within my means, but also freeing. She gestured at the papers. How's the trust doing? See for yourself. I handed her the reports. Your credit score is up 50 points. 62, actually. She smiled slightly. I check it obsessively now, part of the recovery program. The sliding door opened as our parents arrived, followed by Jeremy and Guy. Ready for the first official meeting? Jeremy asked, setting up his laptop. As the Trust's designated record keeper, he'd taken his role seriously. Before we start, my father said, I have something to say. Everyone turned to look at him. He pulled out an envelope. The bank approved our refinancing application. We're not taking the second mortgage. Dad, no, Jordan. You were right. We can't keep enabling destructive patterns. He looked at Oakley. For any of us. Oakley nodded, blinking back tears. Now, my mother said, pulling out her own folder. Shall we discuss the holiday rotation schedule? As they debated who would get the house for Thanksgiving, I noticed Brian hanging back, watching Oakley with cautious hope. The counselor thinks we might be ready to move back in together, Oakley said quietly, following my gaze. If we stick to our new budget. And the shopping? I unsubscribed from all the luxury marketing emails, deleted my shopping apps. She laughed softly. Turns out I don't need $400 sunglasses to be happy. All right, everyone, Jeremy called. First order of business, the scholarship fund. Actually, I interrupted, there's something else first. I pulled out my phone, showing them the email I'd received that morning. The resort developers made another offer. The deck went silent. Jordan, my mother started. You're not considering... No, but look at the last paragraph. They leaned in as I read aloud. In lieu of purchase, we propose a partnership. The trust maintains ownership while we develop and manage the adjacent properties. Your beach house would be the crown jewel of the coastline, increasing in value as the area develops. That's brilliant, Brian said, his real estate experience showing. The trust gets all the benefits of development without losing control. It's your decision, Oakley said softly. You earned this. No, I replied. It's our decision. That's what the trust is for. My father cleared his throat. I vote yes, for the Future Generations Fund. One by one, they voted. When it came to Oakley, she paused. I used to think success meant having everything I wanted, she said. Now I know it means being worthy of what you have. She looked at me. Yes. Then it's unanimous. Jeremy typed rapidly. I'll update the trust documents. Speaking of documents, Guy said, pulling out a newspaper. Show them, Jordan. I took the paper, opening to the healthcare section. There, under medical innovation, was a photo of me and my trauma team, highlighting our new emergency protocol that had reduced critical response times by 30%. My little sister, Oakley said, but this time there was no condescension in her voice, only pride. Not so little anymore, my father added. As the meeting continued, I watched my family. Really watched them. My parents learning to treat their daughters equally. Brian and Oakley rebuilding their marriage on honesty instead of appearances. Jeremy taking his role as family mediator seriously. Last item, Jeremy announced. The trust's mission statement needs approval. I stood up. I have a suggestion. Everyone turned to listen. The Wong Family Trust exists not to create wealth, but to create value. Not to enable, but to empower. Not to divide, but to unite. Through financial responsibility, educational opportunity, and shared experiences, we build a legacy of strength, wisdom, and genuine success. Oakley wiped her eyes. It's perfect. As the others nodded in agreement, I looked out at the ocean. The waves rolled in steadily, unchanging yet always changing, like family itself. Well, Guy said, raising his coffee mug, to genuine success. To family, I corrected, raising mine. To both, Oakley added softly. Because sometimes they're the same thing. The sun broke through the clouds, warming the deck as we clinked our mugs together, the sound mixing with the waves. A perfect harmony of endings and beginnings, of lessons learned and bridges rebuilt, of revenge transformed into redemption.
I stood in the shadows of the grand ballroom, watching my sister twirl in her $10,000 wedding dress while my credit score burned. The crystal chandeliers caught every sparkle of her tiara, and her laughter echoed off the marble floors, the same laugh she'd used 3 months ago when she'd begged me to co-sign her loan. My name is Zlata, and I'm the responsible sister, the boring one, the one who always comes through in a crisis. Tonight, I'm also the one holding a ticking time bomb disguised as a loan agreement. Zlata, darling, why aren't you dancing? My mother Eleanor's voice carried that familiar note of disapproval. She gestured to the crowded dance floor where Sierra and her new husband Eric were lost in their own world. Someone has to make sure the vendors get paid, I replied, tapping my tablet. Unless you'd like to handle the final payments? She wrinkled her nose and adjusted her designer shawl. That's what you're good at, dear. Numbers. Sierra's always been our creative spirit. I bit back the response I'd been swallowing for 27 years. Instead, I smiled and pulled up the loan document on my screen, checking, for the 100th time, that the clause was still there, buried in the fine print like a landmine. Remember when she first showed us the venue? My mother continued, misreading my silence for nostalgia. She just knew it had to be here. Worth every penny. Every penny. 50,000 of them, to be exact. I remembered that day too, but differently. Please, Zlata, Sierra had sobbed, mascara running down her cheeks. The bank won't approve us without a cosigner. You're the only one with good enough credit. That's because I actually pay my bills, I'd said. It's what family does, our father had chimed in from his armchair, not looking up from his newspaper. Your sister would do the same for you. I'd almost laughed at that. Sierra had never done anything for anyone except herself. I'll pay every payment, I swear, Sierra had promised, clutching my hands. Eric's startup is about to take off, and we'll be loaded. Please, please, please. Now I watched Eric whisper something in Sierra's ear, making her giggle. He caught my eye across the room and raised his champagne glass with a wink. I raised mine back, wondering if he knew about the clause yet. Wondering if either of them had actually read the paperwork before signing it. Mrs. Foster, a wedding planner materialized beside me. The photographer wants to know if we're still doing the sunset photos on the terrace. Of course we are, Sierra appeared, dragging Eric by the hand. Zlata, you're in these too. You have to. You made all this possible. If she only knew how true that was. I let myself be pulled outside. The setting sun painted everything gold, including Sierra's perfect face as she posed against the balustrade. Our parents joined us, and the photographer arranged us like dolls. The happy family, the perfect wedding, the American dream. Closer together, the photographer called. Big smiles. This is a celebration. I smiled, thinking about the email I'd received that morning from Genesis, my friend in legal. It's bulletproof, she'd written. The clause is active the moment they miss a payment. If they leave the country without setting up a payment plan, liability reverts to the original sponsors, your parents. They signed it too, remember? I remembered. I remembered every signature, every tear-filled manipulation, every guilt trip that had led to this moment. One more, the photographer called. Everyone say, happily ever after. Sierra threw her arms around me, champagne on her breath. I love you so much, sis. You're the best, the absolute best. Over her shoulder, I watched Eric check his phone, his face momentarily serious, before he slipped it back into his pocket. 3 weeks ago, I'd seen him book 2 one-way tickets to a country with no extradition treaty. He didn't know I knew. Back in my hotel room that night, I opened my laptop one final time. The loan agreement glowed on the screen, signatures clear at the bottom. Sierra's loopy scrawl, Eric's confident slash, my parents' hasty scribbles, and my own careful print. Below them all, the clause waited like a coiled snake. I touched the screen gently. Let's see who pays now. My phone buzzed. A text from Sierra. Thank you for everything. You're the best sister anyone could ask for. Love you forever. I didn't reply. Instead, I closed my laptop and poured myself a drink. The real wedding gift was still coming, and I intended to be very, very patient while I waited to deliver it. 6 months after the wedding, I sat in my favorite coffee shop, staring at my phone's call log. 32 attempted calls to Sierra, 16 to Eric, and 48 unanswered text messages. The first loan payment was 3 weeks overdue. You're obsessing again, Genesis said, sliding into the seat across from me with 2 fresh lattes. How many times have you checked Instagram today? I picked up my phone, opened the app, and turned it to show her. Sierra's latest post showed her and Eric on some tropical beach, cocktails in hand. The caption read, "Living our best life, debt-free and destiny-bound. Chaque blessed, chaque new life, chaque no regrets." Genesis's perfectly manicured nails drummed against the table. You knew this would happen. Knowing doesn't make it sting less. I switched to my messages. Look what my mother sent this morning. The text read, "The bank called again. Please handle this, Zlata. You know how your father's blood pressure gets when he's stressed." Have you told them about the clause yet? Genesis asked. Not yet. I'm waiting for... My phone buzzed. A voicemail from Sierra. I put it on speaker. Hey sis, sorry I've been so hard to reach. The Wi-Fi here is just awful. Listen, about those payment notices you keep forwarding, I know you'll figure it out. You always do. You're so good with money stuff. Anyway, love you. Don't work too hard. Genesis's eyes widened. The audacity... Wait for it, I said, holding up a finger. The message continued. Oh, and could you maybe stop calling so much? It's kind of desperate, and Eric says it's bringing down our vibe. Thanks. Kisses. I deleted the message while Genesis muttered something unprintable. You're sure you want to go through with this? She asked. Legally, you're safe. Morally, let them drown. It's not about them drowning, I said, pulling up my email. It's about making sure everyone gets wet. My phone buzzed again. My mother. Zlata, please call me. The bank is being very insistent. I showed Genesis the draft email I'd prepared for the loan agency, Attached was the contract with the clause highlighted, along with proof of Sierra and Eric's departure from the country. "Send it," Genesis said firmly. "Stop torturing yourself." I hesitated, my finger hovering over the send button. Once you do this, you'll finally be free." Genesis reached across the table and squeezed my hand. "Remember what they did to you with Dad's medical bills? The college fund they borrowed for Sierra's art school? The down payment for her first car?" My phone lit up with another Instagram notification. Sierra had posted again. "Some people just can't handle seeing others living their dreams. Your toxic family boundaries. Blessed." I hit send. "Done," I said, feeling oddly hollow. "Now we wait." Genesis raised her coffee cup. "To karma." "To contracts," I corrected, clinking my cup against hers. That evening, I sat in my apartment, watching the sunset through my window when my phone rang. It was Stefan, my ex-boyfriend. "I just saw Sierra's posts," he said without preamble. "Are you okay? Why wouldn't I be?" I kept my voice neutral. Stefan had been there during the medical bills crisis, had watched me empty my savings for my father's heart surgery, while Sierra took a spontaneous trip to Europe. "Because you always take care of everyone," he said softly. "And no one ever takes care of you." I thought about the email I'd sent, about the clause that would soon detonate in my parents' lap. "That's changing." "Good," he said. "It's about time." After we hung up, I opened my laptop and checked my email. The loan agency had already responded. "Dear Ms. Zlata, we acknowledge receipt of your documentation regarding the liability reassignment clause. Our legal team will review and proceed accordingly. Expect contact within 48 hours. My phone buzzed one final time. A text from Eric. "Real nice, Zlata. Sierra's crying. Hope you're happy." I typed back, "You should have read the fine print." Then I blocked both their numbers, poured myself a glass of wine, and pulled up the folder where I'd kept every receipt, every transfer, every record of money I'd given to my family over the years. The total could have bought me a house. Instead, it had bought me this moment, waiting for the hammer to fall on the people who had taken me for granted for so long. My mother's words echoed in my head. "It's what family does." I smiled into my wine glass. "Yes, Mother. This is exactly what family does." The memory of drafting the clause was still crystal clear. I'd sat in Genesis's living room 3 months before the wedding, surrounded by takeout containers and legal documents, while she connected me with her lawyer friend on speakerphone. "You want it ironclad," the lawyer had said. "Something they can't wiggle out of." Genesis had topped off my wine glass. "Tell him about the medical bills again. $28,000, I'd said. My entire savings gone because Sierra needed a trip to find herself the same month Dad needed surgery. "And the college fund?" Genesis prompted. "Borrowed, never returned. Sierra's art school dream was apparently more important than my MBA. The lawyer had hummed thoughtfully. "We can work with this. The key is making it seem benign enough that they'll sign without questioning, but specific enough to be legally binding." Now, sitting at my desk at work, I pulled up the final version we'd crafted. In the event of default, should the primary borrower leave the country without establishing a payment plan, all liability transfers to the original co-signing sponsors, who acknowledge full responsibility for the remaining balance. Simple, clean, devastating. My office phone rang. Zlata speaking. "The clause is active." It was Genesis. "Just got word from legal. Your parents are being contacted today." I checked my email. Sure enough, there was a message from the loan agency. "Per Section 7.3 of the agreement, liability has been transferred to Elena and Wilfred. Initial contact will be made within 24 hours. "How long do you think until—" Genesis started. My cell phone lit up with my mother's number. "Got to go," I said. "It's starting." I let it ring 4 times before answering. "Hello, Mother." "What is this?" Her voice was shrill. These people are saying we owe $50,000. This must be a mistake. No mistake. Check your email. I sent you a copy of the contract you signed. But I heard papers rustling. We didn't. We only signed as witnesses. Read section 7.3, I said calmly. More rustling. Then silence. You tricked us, she whispered. No, Mother. I learned from the best. Remember what you told me? It's what family does. Your father's blood pressure will be fine, just like it was fine when I paid for his surgery while Sierra was posting selfies from Paris. That was different. She needed to find herself. Yes, I remember. Now you need to find $50,000. She started crying. The sound used to devastate me, used to send me running to fix whatever problem she was facing. Now it just made me tired. We'll call Sierra, she said between sobs. She'll make this right. I laughed. Good luck with that. Her number's disconnected. This isn't you, Zlata. You're not this cruel. Actually, this is me. The real me. The one who's done being everyone's ATM. The line went quiet, except for her ragged breathing. Finally, she spoke in a whisper. What do you want? I want you to pay the debt you signed for. I want you to face consequences. I want you to feel what it's like to be responsible for once. We're your parents. Yes. And you taught me everything I know about family loyalty. I hung up and turned my phone off. Through my office window, I could see the city sprawling out below, people rushing about their days, dealing with their own dramas and betrayals. My computer pinged with a new email. From Sierra, sent from a new address. You controlling bitch. You always want to win. Happy now? Mum's hysterical. Dad's chest hurts, and it's all your fault. I never should have trusted you. You're dead to me. I forwarded it to Genesis with just 3 words. Worth every penny. Her response came quickly. Your sister's about to learn that karma takes Venmo. I opened my bottom drawer and pulled out an old photo, the last family vacation we'd taken together. Sierra in the center, as always, our parents beaming at her. Me on the edge, checkbook in hand, paying the hotel bill. My office door opened. It was my junior associate, looking nervous. Ms. Zlata? I need a favor. Could you co-sign on the Miller account? It's just a formality. I looked at him, then at the photo, then back at him. No, I said, I don't co-sign anything anymore. He blinked, surprised by my directness. But it's just a standard procedure. So is paying your own bills, I said, turning back to my computer. Try that first. As he left, I picked up my phone and turned it back on. 12 missed calls from my parents, 5 new emails from Sierra, 1 text from Genesis. How does it feel? I typed back. Like freedom. The collection agency didn't waste any time. 3 days after the clause activation, my mother showed up at my office unannounced, mascara streaking down her face. They're threatening to put a lien on our house, she said, dropping into the chair across from my desk. Your childhood home, Zlata. I kept typing, not looking up. The same house you remortgaged to pay for Sierra's art school? That childhood home? That was different. She had potential, and I didn't. I finally met her eyes. Is that why you took my college fund? We borrowed it, she said weakly. Borrowing implies returning. I pulled up an old spreadsheet. Would you like to see the exact amount with interest? My office phone buzzed. Ms. Zlata, your 2 p.m. is here. Tell them 5 minutes. I turned back to my mother. The collection agency is actually being quite reasonable. They'll accept payment plans. On $50,000? She dabbed at her eyes with a monogrammed handkerchief. Probably another of Sierra's expensive gifts, bought with someone else's money. Your father can barely sleep. He keeps checking our accounts, trying to find money that isn't there. Like I did when he needed surgery? She flinched. That was years ago. Why are you still holding on to that? Because someone has to remember. Someone has to keep the receipts. My phone lit up with a text from Sierra. Mom's crying because of you, again. You're such a controlling bitch. You always want to win. Happy now? I showed the message to my mother. Your perfect daughter sends her regards. She's scared, my mother said. She's young. She's 27. I was 24 when I paid Dad's medical bills. But you're stronger. You can handle these things. I leaned back in my chair, letting her words hang in the air. That's interesting, Mother. Tell me more about how being taken advantage of makes me strong. She stood up suddenly, her chair scraping against the floor. I didn't raise you to be this cruel. You didn't raise me at all. You were too busy enabling Sierra. We'll lose everything, she whispered. No, you'll lose what you put at risk when you signed that contract. There's a difference. What do you want from us? I finally smiled. I want you to experience consequences, just once. I want you to feel what it's like when no one comes to save you. My phone buzzed again, a video call from Sierra. I answered it, putting it on speaker. You evil witch. Sierra's face was red with rage. Mom just called me sobbing. How could you do this to them? The same way you did it to me, I replied calmly, except I used a contract instead of tears. We're family. Exactly. And this is what family does, remember? Behind Sierra, I could see Eric pacing, talking rapidly on his phone. He looked worried. Having visa troubles? I asked innocently. Sierra's eyes widened. How did you... It's amazing what happens when your credit score tanks and there's an international debt notice with your name on it. My mother gasped. You didn't. I didn't do anything, I said. Actions have consequences. Isn't that what you always told me, Mother? Right before asking me to fix another one of Sierra's mistakes? Sierra's face crumpled. They're going to revoke our visas. Eric's business deals are falling apart. Everything we built here, you built nothing, I cut in. You ran away from debt and responsibility, like you always do. The only difference is this time, there's no one to clean up your mess. Girls, my mother pleaded, we can fix this. Zlata, if you just pay... No. I stood up. My 2 p.m. is waiting. You both know where the door is. Please, Sierra sobbed. I'm your sister, and they're my parents. Funny how that only matters when you need something. I ended the call and turned to my mother. The collection agency's number is on the letter they sent you. I suggest you call them before they call you again. She walked to the door, then turned back. You'll regret this. Someday, when you need your family... I've needed my family many times, I said. Where were you? After she left, I sat in my quiet office, hands shaking slightly. My phone buzzed with a text from Genesis. Drinks tonight? You look like you need them. I typed back, bring wine and the contract. I want to frame it. Another text came through, this one from my father. We thought you wouldn't actually go through with it. I responded with a single line. That's always been your problem. Then I turned off my phone, straightened my desk, and called in my 2 p.m. After all, I had actual work to do. Bills don't pay themselves. Just ask my family. The forced family dinner was my mother's idea. Sunday dinner, like old times, she'd said on the phone, her voice dripping with false sweetness. We need to discuss this situation like adults. I arrived exactly on time to find my parents already seated at their dining room table. A spread of my favorite childhood dishes laid out like emotional ammunition. Your father made your favorite lasagna, my mother said, serving me a generous portion. Remember how you used to help him in the kitchen? I remember paying for his heart medication after making that lasagna, I replied, setting my fork down. Let's skip the nostalgia and get to the point. My father cleared his throat. The bank is being insistent. Banks tend to be that way about money. We've looked at our options, my mother cut in. We could sell the vacation property. The one I was supposed to inherit? I laughed. The one you remortgaged for Sierra's wedding? You're not being fair, my father said quietly. I pulled out a folder and placed it on the table. Let's talk about fair. Inside was a spreadsheet. Every dollar I'd given them over the years, meticulously documented with dates and reasons. Page 1, Dad's medical bills, $28,000. Page 2, Sierra's art school tuition, $40,000 of my college fund. Page 3, the down payment for Sierra's first car, $12,000. Should I continue? My mother pushed the folder away. We're not here to dwell on the past. No, you're here because the collection agency is drowning you in calls. We raised you, my father said. We gave you everything. You gave Sierra everything. I earned everything I have. My phone buzzed. A text from Genesis. How's the ambush going? Before I could respond, my mother reached across the table and grabbed my hand. Darling, please, we can fix this together, for the family. The family. I pulled my hand away. Where was this family concern when I worked 2 jobs to pay for Dad's surgery, while Sierra posted Instagram photos from Europe? She was finding herself, and now she's lost herself in another country with $50,000 of my money. My father stood up suddenly, his face red. We thought you wouldn't actually enforce the contract. We thought you'd understand that it was okay to take advantage of me. Again, that family protects each other, my mother interjected. I stood up, pushing my untouched plate away. Funny how that protection only goes one way. We'll lose the house, my father said quietly. Then sell the vacation property. But that was supposed to be your inheritance, my mother protested. My inheritance? I pulled up Sierra's latest Instagram post on my phone, her and Eric on the beach of that same vacation property last summer. Like how I was supposed to inherit it last year, before you let them stay there rent-free? My parents exchanged guilty looks. You knew, I said, realization dawning. You knew they were planning to leave the country. My mother's silence was answer enough. You helped them plan it, I continued. You thought I'd just... What? Pay off their debt like I've paid off everything else? You're stronger than Sierra, my father said weakly. You can handle these things. Not anymore. I grabbed my purse. Call the collection agency, set up a payment plan, sell whatever you need to sell. I'm done handling things. Zlata, please, my mother called after me. What will people think? I turned at the door. They'll think you're finally facing consequences. How does it feel? Outside, I sat in my car for a long moment, hands shaking on the steering wheel. My phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. Eric using a new phone. Got your little message about the visa issues. Real cute, but you forgot something. I know things about your company, things that could hurt your career. Want to reconsider your position? I forwarded the message to Genesis with 3 words. Time for phase 2? Her response was immediate. Let's bury them. Back at home, I poured myself a glass of wine and opened my laptop. In a folder labeled Insurance, I had copies of every questionable email Sierra and Eric had sent about their plans to default on the loan. Every conversation about fleeing the country, every piece of evidence showing my parents' knowledge and compliance. I drafted a new email to the loan agency's fraud department. I have information regarding a premeditated loan default. My phone rang. My mother again. I declined the call and hit send on the email instead. Sometimes, I whispered to my empty apartment, the best family dinner is the last one. The anonymous tip took less than 24 hours to detonate. I was at my desk when Genesis burst into my office, her tablet displaying multiple social media feeds. It's happening, she said, turning the screen toward me. Someone leaked parts of the loan documentation to a financial whistleblower site. The story's going viral. Sierra's Instagram comments had exploded overnight. Her latest beach photo was flooded with responses. Must be nice to live luxury while running from debt. How do you sleep at night knowing your sister's paying for your lifestyle? Financial frauds living their best life. My phone buzzed. Eric again. What did you do? Our sponsors are pulling out. I typed back, I didn't do anything. The truth did. Another notification popped up, an email from my father. Subject line, we need to talk. I opened it. Meeting at the house, 7 p.m., come alone. Genesis read it over my shoulder. Trap? Obviously. I closed my laptop, but I'm going anyway. Want backup? No, it's time to finish this. The house looked smaller than I remembered, its shadows longer in the evening light. My father sat alone on the porch steps, looking older than his 61 years. Your mother's not here, he said as I approached. I asked her to let me handle this. Handle what? He pulled out a stack of papers. We found these in Sierra's old room. She left them behind when they ran. Email printouts, bank statements, text messages, a complete paper trail of their plan to take the money and run. You knew, I said quietly. You knew all along. We thought, he rubbed his face. We thought you wouldn't actually go through with the clause. You never go through with consequences. You always fix things. Not anymore. The collection agency called again. They're talking about fraud charges now. Criminal charges, Zlata. Actions have consequences. He looked up at me, eyes wet. She's your sister. And I'm your daughter. Did that ever matter? Silence stretched between us, heavy with decades of unspoken resentment. We got a call from Sierra an hour ago, he finally said. Their visas are being revoked. Eric's business partners are backing out. They're stranded. Karma's not very subtle, is it? Can't you stop this? I sat beside him on the steps, keeping careful distance. Remember when I was 16 and I wanted to go to that summer programming camp? He stared straight ahead. You said we couldn't afford it, but 2 months later, Sierra needed a new laptop for her photography hobby. Premium model, top of the line. Zlata, I'm not fixing this, I said, standing up. I'm not fixing anything ever again. My phone buzzed. A video call from Sierra. I answered it where my father could see. They're freezing our accounts. Sierra was crying, mascara running. Eric's partners are saying something about fraud investigations. What's happening? The truth is happening, I said calmly. How's that working out for you? We're stuck here. The embassy won't help. Our cards are declined. Sounds like a you problem. Dad, she wailed, seeing him in the frame. Tell her to stop this. He looked between us, lost. I don't know how. That's right, I said. For once, you don't know how to fix things for her. Interesting feeling, isn't it? Sierra's face contorted with rage. You evil, jealous. I ended the call. My father stood slowly, papers clutched in his trembling hands. What do you want from us? I want you to sit in this mess you helped create. I want you to feel what it's like when no one comes to save you. I want you to understand what you did to me all these years. We loved you. No, you used me. There's a difference. My phone buzzed again. Genesis. The fraud department wants to schedule an interview. Ready for the final nail? I looked at my father, this broken man who had always chosen the path of least resistance, who had let my mother and sister drain me dry year after year. I have to go, I said. I have a meeting about fraud charges. Please, he whispered. We're family. I paused at my car. That stopped meaning anything the day you chose her over me for the last time. As I drove away, I watched him in my rearview mirror, still clutching those damning papers, standing alone in the growing darkness of the house, where I'd learned that blood means nothing when it's always flowing one way. The collection agency moved fast. Within a week, they began garnishing my parents' assets. I watched from my office as their vacation property listing went live, the same property I'd dreamed of inheriting, now priced for a quick sale. My mother showed up unannounced, makeup perfect despite her red-rimmed eyes. They're taking everything. Not everything, I said, not looking up from my computer. Just what you put at risk. Why are you doing this to us? I'm not doing anything. The contract is. She slammed her hand on my desk. "Look at me when I'm talking to you." I met her eyes. "Like you looked at me when I begged you not to take my college fund?" That was different. Yes, you keep saying that, but it wasn't different. It was just another time you chose Sierra over me. My phone buzzed. An email from the fraud investigation team. "Interview scheduled with Sierra and Eric via video conference. Your presence is requested." "They're investigating Sierra for fraud," my mother whispered, reading over my shoulder. "Our baby girl could go to jail." Should have thought about that before helping her plan an international loan default. She sank into the chair across from me. "How did you become so cold?" "I learned from the best." I turned my screen to show her Sierra's latest social media post, a tearful video about being victimized by toxic family. "She's scared," my mother said. "She's manipulating. Again. But this time, it won't work." My phone rang. Genesis. "Turn on the news," she said without greeting. "Local business channel." I pulled up the live stream. There was Eric being escorted from a business meeting by security. The headline scrolled, "Local startup founder under investigation for international fraud." My mother covered her mouth. "Oh God." "Actions, consequences," I said quietly. "Funny how that works." "They're stranded," she pleaded. "Their visas are expired. Their accounts are frozen." Like my accounts were frozen after paying Dad's medical bills? When I had to eat ramen for 6 months while Sierra posted photos from Paris? The office door opened. My father walked in, looking defeated. "The vacation house sold," he said. "Below asking, but enough to cover part of the debt." "Congratulations," I said. "You're learning financial responsibility. Only took 61 years. "Zlata," my mother tried again, "we can still fix this. As a family." "We were never a family," I cut in. "We were a support system for Sierra. There's a difference." My phone buzzed again, a message from an unknown number. "This is Eric. Please, we're desperate. The embassy won't help. Sierra's having panic attacks. Name your price." I showed the message to my parents. "See? Now he wants to negotiate. Funny how that happens when the money runs out." "What are you going to do?" my father asked. I typed a response. "My price? Everything you took plus interest, calculate it. I'll wait." "They don't have that kind of money," my mother protested. "Neither did I when you took my college fund. Neither did I when Dad needed surgery. Neither did I when Sierra needed bail money that one time. But somehow, I managed." My computer pinged. An email from the fraud investigators requesting additional documentation. "I have a meeting to prepare for," I said, standing. "You can see yourselves out." "Wait," my father said. "The house. They're talking about a lien." "Then I guess you better start packing." My mother burst into tears. Real ones this time, not the manipulative sobs I'd grown up with. "Why did you do this to us?" she cried. I walked to the door and held it open. "You did this to yourselves. I just put it in writing." After they left, I sat back down and opened my email. Sierra had sent a long, rambling apology, the kind she always wrote when she needed something. I deleted it without reading. Genesis appeared in my doorway. "Ready for the fraud interview tomorrow?" "Ready to end this?" I said. "They're your family," she reminded me gently. "No," I replied, pulling up the final piece of evidence, photos of my parents helping Sierra pack for her escape, dated 2 days before the wedding. "They're just people who share my DNA. Family would never have done this." My phone lit up one last time, a text from Sierra. "I'm sorry, I mean it this time. Please help us." I typed back 6 words. "Sorry doesn't pay back 50,000. Then I turned off my phone, opened the fraud investigation files, and began preparing my statement. Tomorrow would be the final nail, the one that would seal not just their fate, but the coffin on every family tie that had ever bound me to their manipulation. It was time to end this story, on my terms. The beach was empty except for me and the seagulls. I sat on the sand, reading the final notice from the collection agency. Debt resolved through asset liquidation. Case closed. My phone buzzed, Genesis sending me a news article. Local couple detained at border attempting illegal re-entry. I smiled. Sierra and Eric had tried sneaking back into the country through Mexico. It hadn't gone well. Another buzz. My mother. They're holding them for questioning. Please help. I typed back. New phone? Who's this? The wind picked up, carrying away her next 3 messages before I could read them. I didn't bother retrieving them from the sand. My laptop chimed with an email from the fraud investigators. Thank you for your cooperation. Charges have been filed. Good, I whispered to the waves. A shadow fell across my screen. I looked up to find my father standing there, looking lost in his now too large suit. The house sold, he said, sitting heavily in the sand beside me. We're moving into an apartment next week. Downsizing can be healthy. Your mother, he paused. She's not handling it well. And nothing. He picked up a handful of sand, let it slip through his fingers. I'm not here to ask for anything. I'm here to say you were right. I closed my laptop. About? Everything. We failed you. We let Sierra drain you dry. His voice cracked. We weren't parents to you. We were enablers to her. Took you long enough to notice. I saw the spreadsheet, he continued. The one with all the money you gave us over the years. Did you know the total equals almost exactly what your mother and I lost in assets? Karma's good at math. He pulled an envelope from his jacket. This was in Sierra's old room. It's addressed to you, dated the day before the wedding. I opened it. Inside was a note in Sierra's handwriting. Dear Zlata, by the time you read this, we'll be gone. Thanks for being such a reliable ATM all these years. Don't worry, Mom and Dad will guilt you into fixing this too. They always do. Love, Sierra. She never saw you as a sister, my father said quietly. And we never saw you as a daughter. We saw you as a solution. I folded the note carefully. And now we see you as someone we lost through our own actions. He stood up, brushing sand from his pants. I'm not asking for forgiveness. I'm just saying you were right to do what you did. My phone buzzed again. Genesis. Holy shit. Sierra and Eric are facing federal charges. Your parents' statement sealed it. I looked up at my father. You testified against them? We told the truth, he said simply. Finally, he turned to leave, then stopped. That spreadsheet, the total you gave us over the years, would have bought this beach house, I finished, gesturing to the luxury property behind us. The one I just closed on this morning. His eyes widened slightly. You bought the vacation house you had to sell? Yes. At below market value, thanks to the urgent sale requirement. I stood up, brushing sand from my legs. Funny how things come full circle. He nodded once, understanding the finality of it all, and walked away. I watched him disappear down the beach, a smaller man than I'd ever seen him. My phone lit up with a video call, Sierra from a detention center. I answered it. They're charging us with fraud, she sobbed. Mom and Dad testified. How could they? How could you leave me with $50,000 in debt? That's different. We're family. Not anymore. I held up my house keys. Remember this view? The beach house you love so much? It's mine now, legally, permanently, and you're never stepping foot in it. You bitch! I ended the call and blocked the number. Genesis appeared at the top of the beach stairs, carrying 2 champagne glasses. Ready to christen the new house? Almost. I pulled up my banking app and looked at my accounts. All in the black, all in my name only. No co-signers, no family loans, no guilt. To karma, Genesis said, handing me a glass. To contracts, I corrected. but then smiled, and to finally choosing myself. We clinked glasses as the sun set over my new beach house, painting everything in shades of justice. My phone stayed silent. No more family emergencies, no more guilt trips, no more manipulation. Just peace, property in my name, and the sound of waves washing everything clean. Sometimes revenge doesn't roar. Sometimes it whispers in legal documents and property deeds. Sometimes it looks like finally closing the door on the people who never saw you as anything but a solution to their problems. And sometimes it feels exactly like freedom.
The day I found out my sister stole my college fund, I was organising my financial aid documents at our kitchen table. My acceptance letter to Stanford lay beside me, my dream school since I was 12. I'd worked my entire life for this moment, maintaining a 4.0 GPA while juggling 3 part-time jobs to supplement the savings account my parents had started for me when I was born. My name is Mary, and that was the day my family showed me exactly who they were. What do you mean the account is empty? I stared at my mother across the kitchen table, my hands trembling as I held the bank statement. There should be over $40,000 in there. Mom stirred her coffee casually, not meeting my eyes. Sydney needed it more than you did, honey. You're smart. You'll figure something out. The room started spinning. Sydney needed my college fund for what exactly? As if summoned, my sister sauntered into the kitchen wearing designer clothes I'd never seen before. A brand new iPhone peeked out of her Gucci purse. Oh my God, is this about the money? Sydney rolled her eyes. You're being so dramatic. I needed to establish myself socially before starting my influencer career. Image is everything these days. You spent my college fund on clothes and accessories. My voice cracked. Mom, Dad, you let her do this. Dad walked in, newspaper tucked under his arm. Princess, your sister has a real shot at making it big on social media. It's an investment in her future. Besides, you can always go to community college. I felt like I'd been slapped. An investment? What about my future? I got into Stanford, Sydney laughed. Actually laughed. Please. Like you could handle Stanford anyway. You should be thanking me for saving you from embarrassing yourself. Mary, Mom sighed. We always knew Sydney had that special something. You're more practical. You'll be fine wherever you go. I stood up so quickly my chair toppled backward. Practical? I worked 3 jobs while maintaining perfect grades. I earned that money. It was meant for my education. Oh, stop being so selfish, Sydney snapped. I already have 10,000 followers. Once I hit it big, I'll pay you back double. When did you take it? I demanded. How long have you all been lying to me? Mum and Dad exchanged glances. We transferred it to Sydney's account about 6 months ago, Dad admitted. She had a solid business plan. 6 months, I interrupted. While I was working overtime at the diner, while I was applying for scholarships. Look what I got with it, Sydney twirled, showing off her outfit. Don't you think I look amazing? This is what success looks like, Mary. Something inside me broke. I walked to my room without another word, pulled out my suitcase and started packing. My hands were steady now, my mind clear. I could hear them talking in the kitchen. She'll get over it, Mum was saying. She always does. Should we check on her? Dad asked. Let her throw her little tantrum, Sydney replied. She's just jealous of my potential. I zipped up my suitcase and walked back to the kitchen. I'm leaving. Don't be ridiculous, Mom scoffed. Where would you go? Anywhere but here. I pulled out my phone and dialed my friend Brady's number. Hey, can I crash at your place for a while? Of course, he answered immediately. Everything okay? I'll explain when I get there. I hung up and faced my family one last time. You know what's funny? I always knew Sydney was your favourite, but I never thought you'd steal from me to prove it. We didn't steal anything, Dad protested. We redistributed family resources. Save it. I headed for the door. I hope those followers are worth it, Sydney, because you just bought them with my trust and respect. Mary, don't be dramatic, Mom started. I'm not being dramatic. I'm being practical, remember? And practically speaking, I no longer have a family. I walked out, wheeling my suitcase behind me. As I reached the sidewalk, I heard Sydney call out, "You'll regret this when I'm famous." I didn't look back. I had exactly $342.87 in my personal account, a part-time job at a diner, and an acceptance letter to a school I could no longer afford. But I also had something else. A burning determination to prove them all wrong. Brady was waiting for me when I arrived at his apartment 20 minutes later. One look at my face and he knew something was seriously wrong. "Want to talk about it?" he asked, helping me with my suitcase. I took a deep breath. "Yeah, but first, I need to figure out how to apply for student loans. I'm going to Stanford with or without their help." Living out of Brady's spare room wasn't exactly the fresh start I'd imagined for myself, but it was better than going back home. The first week was the hardest. I'd wake up confused, reaching for my childhood alarm clock before remembering where I was. "You need to eat something," Brady insisted one morning, sliding a plate of scrambled eggs across his kitchen counter. "You've got that financial aid meeting at Stanford today." I pushed the eggs around with my fork. "What's the point? Even with loans and aid, I'm still short by thousands." "Then we'll figure something out," Brady sat beside me. "But you're not giving up. I didn't watch you work your ass off for 4 years just to let your sister's shopping spree derail your future." The financial aid officer's name was Rachel, and she changed my life that afternoon. "Your situation is unusual," she said, reviewing my documents. "But not impossible. Tell me, Mary, how badly do you want to attend Stanford?" "More than anything," I replied without hesitation. "I'll work 3 jobs if I have to." Rachel smiled. "That won't be necessary. There's a work-study program in my department. It won't cover everything, but combined with loans and a partial scholarship, I think we can make this work. The catch is, you'll need to take a reduced course load. It might take 5 years instead of 4. "I'll take it," I said immediately. "I don't care if it takes 10 years. That evening, I picked up an extra shift at the diner to celebrate. The irony wasn't lost on me, celebrating the chance to work more by working more. As I refilled coffee cups, my phone buzzed with a text from Sydney. "OMG sis, just hit 15K followers. Told you this was a good investment. Miss you." I deleted it without responding. Months passed. I settled into a routine. Classes in the morning, work-study in the afternoon, diner shifts at night. Brady's spare room became my sanctuary, decorated with second-hand furniture I'd picked up from yard sales. "You should see their Facebook posts," Brady said one evening as we shared takeout. "Sydney's influencer career isn't exactly taking off. Your dad's business isn't doing great either." "I don't want to know," I replied, focusing on my noodles. "They're not my problem anymore." But late that night, I found myself scrolling through their profiles. Sydney's follower count had plateaued. Her latest posts were mostly ads for sketchy weight loss teas. Mum's usually cheerful updates had taken on a worried tone, with vague references to challenging times and keeping faith. The next morning, Rachel caught me yawning during our work-study shift. "Late night?" she asked, handing me a stack of files to organize. "Just thinking too much." I hesitated. "Can I ask you something? How do you know when you've made the right choice?" Rachel set down her coffee. "Is this about your family? How did you—" "Mary, you're not the first student I've seen whose family let them down. But you're one of the few who turned that disappointment into determination." She leaned forward. "The right choice isn't always the easy one. Sometimes it's the one that hurts, but helps you grow. I just feel—" I searched for the words. "Lost, sometimes, like I'm floating without an anchor." "Then build new anchors," she said simply. "Create your own support system. Look around, you've already started." She was right. Between Brady's unwavering support, Rachel's mentorship, and my own stubborn persistence, I was slowly building something new. Something that was entirely mine. That night at the diner, I overheard 2 customers discussing a new tech startup that was revolutionizing financial software. They mentioned they were hiring entry-level programmers. "Excuse me," I interrupted, setting down their coffee. "I couldn't help overhearing. I'm actually studying computer science at Stanford. 2 weeks later, I quit the diner for an internship that paid twice as much. When I told Brady, he insisted on taking me out to celebrate. To new beginnings, he toasted, raising his glass. And old friends, I added, clinking my glass against his. I wouldn't be here without you, Brady. Please, he scoffed. You did all the hard work. I just provided the couch. My phone buzzed. Another text from Sydney. Mom and Dad are worried about you. At least let them know you're okay. I turned off my phone and focused on Brady. Tell me about your day instead. As we talked and laughed, I realized Rachel was right. I was building new anchors, creating my own definition of family. And for the first time since that day in the kitchen, I felt truly, completely okay. Little did I know that in a few years, those same people who had laughed at my dreams would be the ones desperately seeking my help. But that's another story. One that would prove that karma has perfect timing. 5 years after walking out of my childhood home, I stood on Stanford's graduation stage, my heart pounding as they called my name. The internship had turned into a full-time position, and I'd managed to graduate with honors despite my extended timeline. Mary! Brady shouted from the crowd, whistling loudly. Beside him, Rachel beamed, looking every bit as proud as a mother should. Later, at the small celebration dinner Brady organized, Rachel handed me an envelope. Open it, she urged, practically bouncing in her seat. Inside was a job offer, Director of Student Financial Services at Stanford. But that's your job, I said, confused. Was my job, Rachel corrected. I'm moving to the Dean's office, and I recommended you as my replacement. You've lived it, Mary. You know what these kids are going through. Who better to help them? I looked at the salary figure and nearly choked on my wine. It was more money than I'd ever imagined making, especially combined with my tech job, which I'd decided to keep part-time. Speech, Brady called out, raising his glass. To the 2 people who became my real family, I said, my voice thick, who believed in me when my own family wouldn't. Speaking of family, Brady said carefully, sliding his phone across the table, you might want to see this. It was a local news article. McCoy Technologies files for bankruptcy, the headline read. My father's company, once the pride of his life, was failing. The article mentioned mounting debts and mismanagement. There's more, Brady added. Sydney's influencer career. Well, I pulled up her Instagram. Her follower count had dropped dramatically, and her last post was a tearful video about being scammed by a fake modeling agency. She'd lost thousands of dollars, probably what remained of my college fund. Are you okay? Rachel asked softly. Honestly, I feel nothing. I handed the phone back to Brady. They made their choice 5 years ago. The next morning, I walked into my new office at Stanford, ready to start my first day. By lunch, I'd already helped 2 students figure out their financial aid options. As I was reviewing a third case, my office phone rang. Mary? It's Mom. My hand froze over the paperwork. How did you get this number? Your old friend Jessica works in administration. Please don't hang up. Her voice cracked. We need to talk. We needed to talk 5 years ago, I replied coldly, before you let Sydney steal my future. She didn't steal. Mum caught herself. Look, things are difficult right now. Your father's business, Sydney's investments. We're losing the house, Mary. That sounds like a personal problem. We're family, she pleaded. Family? I laughed. Family doesn't steal from each other. Family doesn't dismiss dreams as impractical. Family doesn't... We made a mistake, she interrupted. We know that now. Please, can we just meet? Have dinner? Your father and Sydney will be there. We need to make things right. I was about to refuse when Rachel's words from years ago echoed in my mind. Sometimes the right choice is the one that hurts but helps you grow. Fine, I said finally. Thursday night. Send me the details. After hanging up, I called Brady. They want to meet, I told him. Are you going? Yes. I took a deep breath. But not for them. For me. I want them to see exactly what they threw away. That evening, I stood in front of my mirror, adjusting my blazer. My reflection showed someone different from the broken girl who'd fled with a single suitcase. This woman was successful, confident, and, most importantly, whole. My phone buzzed with a text from Sydney. "Can't wait to see you, sis. We have so much catching up to do." I thought about all the times I'd dreamed of this moment, of showing them how wrong they were about me. But now that it was here, I realized something important. I didn't need their validation anymore. "You don't have to do this," Brady said when I called him again. "I know." I grabbed my car keys. "But I want to. Besides, I'm curious to see what they think constitutes making things right." "Want me to come with?" "No," I replied, thinking of the folder I'd prepared with bank statements, achievement certificates, and my new business cards. "I can handle this." As I drove to the restaurant, I thought about how life has a way of coming full circle. 5 years ago, they'd laughed at my dreams. Now they needed my help. The irony wasn't lost on me, but I wasn't the same person they'd betrayed. I was stronger now, wiser, and I had a feeling this dinner was going to be very interesting indeed. The restaurant they chose was significantly less upscale than the ones they used to frequent. I spotted them immediately. Mom nervously adjusting her knockoff handbag, Dad's shoulders slumped in his worn suit, and Sydney picking at her chipped nail polish. "Mary!" Sydney jumped up, arms outstretched for a hug I didn't return. Her designer clothes were gone, replaced by fast fashion basics. "Let's skip the pretense," I said, taking my seat. "You didn't invite me here for a family reunion." Mom's face fell. "Can't we at least catch up first? You look different." Success does that to a person. I placed my folder on the table. "So, who wants to start?" "Dad, how's the business?" He flinched. We've hit a rough patch." "The market?" "Filed for bankruptcy," I corrected. "Sydney, how's the influencer career?" She stared at her water glass. "That's not fair." "Neither was stealing my college fund, but here we are." "Mary," Mom interrupted. "We know we made mistakes, but we're still family." "Family?" I opened my folder and pulled out my bank statement from 5 years ago. "Let's talk about family. Here's the account you emptied. $43,000 to be exact, my entire future." "We can explain," Dad started. "I'm not finished." I pulled out my Stanford acceptance letter. "Remember this? The one you said I couldn't handle?" "Well, guess what?" I slid my diploma across the table. "Graduated with honors, while working 2 jobs. Sydney's eyes widened at my business cards. "Director of Student Financial Services, and you work in tech too?" "Turns out I'm not just practical, I'm actually pretty damn successful." I leaned back. "Now, why don't you tell me why we're really here?" Mom burst into tears. "We're losing everything, Mary. The house, the cars, your father's business debts." "The modelling agency scammed me," Sydney added quietly. "All my followers left when I couldn't maintain my lifestyle." "We need..." Dad cleared his throat. "We need help. Alone. Just until we get back on our feet." I let the silence stretch. A waiter approached, but I waved him away. "How much?" $75,000, Dad mumbled, "to keep the house and settle the urgent debts." I pulled out my phone, pulled up my banking app. "I could transfer it right now, I have the money." Their faces lit up with hope. "But before I do," I continued, "I want you to explain something to me. That day in the kitchen, when you told me I wasn't special enough for Stanford, did you believe that?" "We were wrong," Mom whispered. "We were so wrong." "That's not what I asked." I put my phone away. "Did you believe it?" Sydney spoke up, her voice small. "I did. I thought I was better than you, that I deserved it more. And now I know I was just entitled and stupid." She wiped her eyes. "I ruined your dreams for Instagram likes." Dad reached across the table. "Princess, please, we can't lose the house. Your mother and sister will have nowhere to go." I stood up, gathering my folder. "I'll think about it." "That's it?" Sydney's voice cracked. "You're just leaving?" "Unlike some people, I don't make major financial decisions on impulse." I pulled on my coat. "I'll contact you with my decision in 3 days." "Mary, wait," Mom called as I turned to leave. "What happened to you? You used to be so sweet." I paused, looking back at their desperate faces. "I grew up. I learned that sometimes the people who should love you the most are the ones who hurt you the worst. And I learned that I'm worth more than you ever thought I was. We know that now, Sydney whispered. No, I corrected her. You know you need me now. There's a difference. As I walked to my car, my phone buzzed with a text from Brady. How'd it go? I typed back, they need $75K. They're desperate. His response was immediate. What are you going to do? I smiled, thinking of the document I'd asked my lawyer to draw up yesterday just in case. Something they'll never expect. Because while they thought they were asking for a loan, I had a different proposition in mind. One that would make them face exactly what they'd done to me, dollar by dollar, day by day. They wanted my help? Fine. But this time, we'd do it my way. And my way involved a contract that would make them understand the true cost of betrayal. I started my car, already drafting the terms in my head. 3 days. In 3 days, they'd learn exactly what kind of woman their practical daughter had become. 3 days later, I walked into my lawyer's office where my family was already waiting. Their faces lit up with hope when they saw me. Hope that quickly faded when they noticed the thick contract I was carrying. What's this? Dad asked, eyeing the document. My terms. I sat down, sliding a copy to each of them. You want $75,000? Here's how you'll get it. Mom flipped through the pages, her hands trembling. A contract, but we're family. Family didn't stop you from stealing from me. I nodded to my lawyer. Please explain the terms. He cleared his throat. The $75,000 will be disbursed in monthly installments of $5,000, provided all conditions are met. Conditions? Sydney interrupted. What conditions? First, I said, Sydney needs to get a real job. Not influencing, not modelling. An actual 9-to-5 position. Each month she'll put half her salary into a scholarship fund I'm establishing for students whose families have abandoned them financially. Sydney's face reddened. That's not... Second, I continued. Dad needs to take a financial management course and work with a court-appointed bankruptcy advisor. No more risky business ventures. Dad started to protest, but I held up my hand. Third, Mum will volunteer 10 hours per week at the University Financial Aid Office, helping students figure out how to pay for college when their families let them down. This is ridiculous, Mum sputtered. We're asking for help, not punishment. No, I corrected her. You're asking for money. I'm offering a chance at redemption. There's more. My lawyer turned to the next page. The house will be sold. A smaller, more affordable property will be purchased with part of the funds. The remaining money will go toward debt settlement. Sell the house? Dad exploded. That's our home. No, it's a symbol of your pride that you can no longer afford. I leaned forward. Just like my college fund was supposed to be untouchable. But here we are. Sydney was reading through the contract, her face pale. It says here we have to attend family therapy? Monthly sessions, all of us. I met their shocked stares. You want to talk about family? Let's talk about it with a professional who can help us unpack exactly what happened 5 years ago. And if we refuse? Mum's voice was barely a whisper. Then you get nothing. I stood up. You have 1 hour to decide. I'll be in the coffee shop downstairs. Brady was waiting for me there. How'd they take it? About as well as expected. I stirred my coffee. They thought I'd just write a check and forget everything that happened. Will they sign? They don't have a choice. The bank's foreclosing next month and Sydney's credit is destroyed from her failed influencer ventures. 45 minutes later, my lawyer called. They were ready to talk. I returned to find them huddled together, looking defeated. Before you sign, I said, I want you to understand something. This isn't about revenge. This is about accountability. It feels like punishment, Sydney muttered. Really? Because to me it feels like an opportunity, the kind you didn't give me. I pulled out my own pen. I'll sign first, to show you I'm committed to this. All of it, including the therapy. Dad picked up his pen next. We really don't have a choice, do we? You always have a choice, just like you had a choice 5 years ago. I watched as he signed. The difference is this time I'm giving you a chance to make the right one. Mom signed next. tears falling onto the paper. Sydney was last, her signature shaky but determined. "What now?" she asked. "Now," I said, gathering the contracts. "You start over, just like I had to. The first installment will be transferred tomorrow. Sydney, I have 3 job interviews lined up for you next week. Dad, your first financial management class starts Monday. And the therapy?" Mom asked. "First session is Thursday at 6 p.m. Don't be late." I handed them each a copy of the signed contract. "Welcome to your fresh start. Try not to waste it this time." As they filed out, Sydney lingered behind. "Why are you really doing this? You could have just said no." I thought about the scared girl I'd been, packing her bags with shaking hands. About Brady's spare room and Rachel's kindness. About late nights studying and early mornings working. Because someone once told me that the right choice isn't always the easy one. I met her eyes. "Sometimes it's the one that hurts but helps you grow." She nodded slowly, understanding dawning in her eyes. As she left, I pulled out my phone to text Brady. They signed. All of them. His response came quickly. "You're either the most forgiving person I know or the most brilliant." I smiled, thinking of the journey ahead. Maybe I'm both. The first therapy session was as uncomfortable as I'd expected. We sat in a semicircle, the tension thick enough to cut with a knife, while Dr. Roberts observed us with practiced patience. "Let's start with that day," she said. "The day Mary discovered her college fund was gone." "Do we have to?" Sydney squirmed in her seat. "Yes," I said firmly. "We do." "I remember feeling justified," Sydney admitted after a long pause, "like I deserved it more because I had this grand plan to be famous. And now?" Dr. Roberts prompted. "Now I'm working as a junior administrative assistant, making coffee for people Mary's age who are already executives." Sydney's voice cracked. "I wasted everything. Her money, my time, my reputation." Mom reached for her tissue box. "We enabled her. We really thought, that I wasn't worth investing in," I finished. "That I was just the practical one, the backup plan." "No," Dad protested. "We never thought." "Really?" I pulled out my phone, played the video I'd recorded that day. Their own voices filled the room. "Sydney has that special something. You're more practical. Like you could handle Stanford anyway." Dr. Roberts watched their faces as they heard themselves. "That must have been painful to record." "I listen to it sometimes," I admitted, "when I'm doubting myself. It reminds me how far I've come." Sydney burst into tears. "I was horrible. I can't believe I laughed at your dreams." "Sydney," Dr. Roberts said gently, "why do you think you did that?" "Because I was terrified of failing." The words exploded out of her. "Mary always knew what she wanted. She worked hard, had real goals. I thought if I could be famous fast, I could prove I was special too." The session continued, peeling back layers of resentment, jealousy, and misplaced priorities. By the end, we were all emotionally exhausted. In the parking lot, Sydney caught up with me. "I got my first paycheck yesterday." "I know. The scholarship fund received your deposit." "It felt good, actually. Earning something real." She hesitated. "My co-worker mentioned they're looking for someone in the IT department. I thought, maybe I could take some coding classes." I studied her face, searching for any trace of the entitled girl who'd laughed at my ambitions. Instead, I saw something new. Humility. Maybe even determination. "The community college has excellent night classes," I said finally. "I could help you with the application." The next week, Dad called me to his financial management class. Would you mind sitting in? There's something I need to say." I found him standing at the front of the class, hands shaking slightly. "This is my daughter, Mary," he told the room full of other struggling business owners. 5 years ago, I stole her college fund to finance my other daughter's social media career. I lost everything: my business, my home, and most importantly, my daughter's trust. Don't make my mistakes. Don't let pride blind you to what really matters." Later, over coffee, he showed me his new budget plan. "The bankruptcy advisor says if we stick to this, we could be debt-free in 3 years." "That's good, Dad." "Mary," his voice was small, I'm sorry, not just for the money, for not believing in you. Mom's transformation was slower, more resistant, but after a month of working in the financial aid office, something changed. I met a girl today, she told me during our next therapy session. She reminded me of you. Brilliant, hardworking, but her parents, they didn't think college was necessary for a girl. She wiped her eyes. I helped her find scholarships, loans, work-study opportunities. I kept thinking about how no one did that for you, how we did the opposite. Did she get the funding she needed? I asked. Mom smiled through her tears. Yes, she starts next semester. Dr. Roberts leaned forward. How did that make you feel, helping her? Like I was finally doing what a mother should do, supporting someone's dreams instead of crushing them. As I drove home that evening, Brady called to check in. How was therapy? Surprising, I answered. They're actually trying, really trying. And how do you feel about that? I thought about Sydney's coding classes, Dad's humility, Mom's gradual understanding. Cautiously optimistic, but also what? Proud of myself. Not for succeeding despite them, but for giving them a chance to become better people. I pulled into my driveway. Even if it took a legally binding contract to make it happen. That's because you're not just the practical one anymore, Brady said. You're the strong one, the wise one. He was right. I wasn't just surviving anymore, I was thriving, and somehow impossibly helping my family learn to thrive too. On my terms this time. 6 months into our contract, I sat in the audience at Sydney's community college, watching her give a presentation for her introductory programming class. Her hands shook slightly as she demonstrated the simple app she'd built, but her voice was steady. And that's how I created my first budgeting application, she concluded, inspired by my own experience with financial mismanagement. During the Q&A, someone asked about her previous career as an influencer. Actually, Sydney replied, meeting my eyes in the audience, that wasn't a career. That was me stealing my sister's future because I was too afraid to build my own. This, learning to code, working a real job, building something useful, this is my career. After the presentation, I found her in the hallway. So, she asked nervously, what did you think? The code needs work, I said honestly, but the concept is solid. A budgeting app for college students. I thought maybe it could help prevent others from making my mistakes. She clutched her laptop. Would you maybe help me develop it further? Before I could answer, Mom and Dad arrived, having slipped in late. Sorry we missed the presentation, Dad said. The financial management class ran long, but look, he pulled out a certificate. Finally completed the course. And I helped 3 students secure full rides today, Mom added. One of them cried. I used to think those tears were dramatic, but now... She trailed off, remembering. How about we discuss Sydney's app over dinner? I suggested. I know a great Thai place nearby. At the restaurant, Sydney spread out her design notes, while Dad reviewed her projected development costs. This could actually work, he said, running the numbers. Small scale at first, but with the right marketing strategy. No, Sydney interrupted. No more get-rich-quick schemes. I want to do this right, build it properly, test it thoroughly. Mary, that's why I want your help. Not for shortcuts, but for guidance. I felt something shift in my chest. Okay, I said, but we do this my way. Proper development cycles, user testing, gradual rollout. Deal, she beamed. Thank you, sis. Later that week, during our therapy session, Dr. Roberts noted the change in our dynamic. Sydney's asking for help instead of taking, she observed. Mary's offering guidance instead of judgment. This is significant progress. I've been thinking, Mum said suddenly, about the scholarship fund. What if we contributed more? Not just Sydney's portion of her salary, but something from all of us? We could call it the Second Chance Fund, Dad suggested, for students who need help starting over. I felt tears prick my eyes. You'd do that. We owe you so much more than money, Sydney said softly. We owe you an entire future that we tried to steal. Maybe this way, we can help give other students the chance we almost took from you. Dr. Roberts smiled. Mary, how does that make you feel? Validated, I admitted. Like you finally understand what education means, what dreams mean. After the session, Dad pulled me aside. The house goes on the market next week. Are you okay with that? No, he said honestly. But I'm learning that being okay with something isn't as important as doing what's right. We found a smaller place, closer to Sydney's school and your mum's volunteer work. And your new job. He smiled wryly. Being a junior accountant at 60 isn't exactly what I planned, but it's honest work. That means something now. That night, I met Brady for our weekly dinner. You're looking thoughtful, he noted. Sydney asked for my help with her app today. Actually asked instead of assuming or demanding. And I wanted to help her. Genuinely wanted to. I pushed my food around. Is that weird? After everything? No, Brady said. It's growth. On both sides. My phone buzzed. A text from Sydney. Reviewed your coding suggestions. Makes so much sense now. Thank you for being patient with me. Coffee tomorrow to discuss the next module? As I typed back yes, I realized something profound. The contract I'd drafted 6 months ago wasn't just changing them. It was changing me too. The walls I'd built for protection were slowly transforming into bridges. You know what's funny? I told Brady. I created that contract to make them understand what they'd done to me, but watching them actually do the work, make real changes, it's healing something in me too. That's because you're giving them what they didn't give you, he replied. A chance to prove they can be better. I thought about Sydney's app, Dad's humble new job, Mum's dedication to helping students. Small steps, but real ones. Genuine changes, not just performances for my benefit. Maybe, I said, that's what real family does. Not just love each other, but help each other grow. The final payment hit my account on a Tuesday morning. I stared at the notification, remembering the scared girl who'd fled with nothing but a suitcase and determination. Now sitting in my office at Stanford, I pulled out the contract that had changed everything. My phone buzzed, a message from Sydney. Check the App Store, we're live. I opened the store and found it immediately. Fresh Start Finance, building better financial futures. Below the description was my sister's name as lead developer and mine as project advisor. 300 downloads already, Brady said, poking his head into my office. Not bad for day one. Did you see the dedication page? He leaned over my shoulder as I tapped through the app. There it was in simple text. To my sister Mary, who taught me that real success comes from hard work, not shortcuts. Thank you for my second chance. The door opened again. Mum, carrying her volunteer coordinator badge and a stack of files. 2 more full scholarships approved, she announced. The Second Chance Fund is making a real difference. You should see these students' faces when they realize they can actually afford college. Speaking of the fund, Dad entered behind her, straightening his accountant's tie. The quarterly reports are ready. We've helped 28 students so far. I looked at them, really looked at them. Mum's pride wasn't about appearances anymore, but about impact. Dad's confidence came from honest work, not risky schemes. And Sydney, she'd traded Instagram filters for computer filters, building something real. Family therapy in 20 minutes, Sydney reminded everyone joining us. Dr. Roberts said it's time to discuss ending the formal sessions. Are we ready for that? Mum asked. I think we are, I said, surprising myself. Look at us. Actually talking, actually listening. Remember our first session? Sydney laughed. We could barely look at each other. Because we were all carrying shame, Dad admitted. Me for failing as a father, Sydney for what she'd done, your mother for enabling it. And me for being angry, I added, for needing that contract to force you to change. That contract saved us, Mum said quietly. Not just financially, it made us face ourselves. Brady cleared his throat. Speaking of facing things, Mary, should we tell them? I nodded, standing up. We're getting married. Small ceremony next month. Oh, honey. Mom stepped forward, then hesitated. Can I? Would it be okay if I helped plan it? The old fear flickered. Would she try to take over, make it about appearances? But I saw only genuine hope in her eyes. Actually, I said, I'd really like that. Sydney wiped her eyes. Does this mean, are we really family again? We're something better, I replied. We're a family that learned from our mistakes. That grew stronger from our breaks. Dr. Roberts welcomed us warmly when we arrived at her office. I understand you want to discuss concluding our sessions. The contract is fulfilled, I explained. All the terms met, all the payments made. And how do you feel about that? I looked at my family, my real family, rebuilt from the ashes of betrayal. I feel like we don't need a contract anymore. They've proven who they are now. By keeping our promises, Dad said. By earning trust back, Mom added. By becoming people worthy of being called family, Sydney finished. Dr. Roberts smiled. Then I have one last assignment. Mary, what would you do if they needed help again? I'd give it, I said without hesitation. Not because of obligation, but because I trust who they've become. And we'd accept it with gratitude, Sydney said, but only after trying to solve things ourselves first. That, Dr. Roberts said, is how I know you're ready. Later at dinner, Brady raised his glass. To the strongest family I know. To second chances, Dad added. To doing the work, Mom said. To building something real, Sydney smiled. I looked at them, my once broken, now healing family, and raised my own glass. To growing together. As we ate, talked and laughed, I thought about that contract, safely filed away in my office. We'd needed it then, needed its structure and consequences to force us to face our truths. But we didn't need it anymore. What we had now was stronger than any legal document. It was trust, rebuilt from scratch. Understanding, earned through effort. Love, stronger for having been tested and proven. We had become the family we should have been all along, and that was worth more than any college fund. Ready to go home? Brady asked as we finished dinner. I looked at my family, really my family now, and smiled. I am home.